I better add myself to the stage, huh? Let's see if we can. I'll make myself small. There we go. There. Much better. You see my big ass ugly face covering half the screen. I got a big screen. It ain't pretty. Let me just get all this shared up. Hope everybody's had a great week and a good weekend going. Get a few of these links shared out there before Facebook tells me I can't anymore. Still need to contact them about that. I'm a little frustrated having to deal with them every week, and I wish I could just post to all at one time. If anybody figures out how to do that, let me know. It's I have to do it one group at a time, and they don't like it on Facebook when I do that for some reason. So I have to take my time and go a little slowly. Or else they get me. I'm kind of pushing it right now. Got to go slowly. I know they're going to get me any second now. It's about the spot. Got through this time. Wow. Usually that was about the spot they get me every week. So there's a way that I've shared in the past where it has just like a bunch of check marks by boxes, and you can just select any little group you want to share to, and you pick 5 or 10 of them and share. It's just I'm not able to get to that anymore. So far, so good. Maybe they heard my complaint. That would be nice. All right, what's going on, Tim? Hey, Scott. Sorry, I'm trying to post the links and do everything. What's up, Mark? What am I working on? I've got blueberry, blueberry that I've been ready to steal for about a month and a half now, but I've not found the time to, man. My basement flooded, so I've been kind of working on that a little bit, trying to clean things up. Had a bunch of shit on the floor, and yeah, it's a mess. If you still pukes, can you still run it? Absolutely. You're just getting, a little bit of your mash in there. I mean, you can drink a mash. So once it boils, it's pretty much sterilizes everything. You got boiling alcohol in there, and it's puking over. You know what a lot of people do if they puke over and they get some discoloration and stuff, you go ahead and finish your run. I mean, if it happens early, that's in your heads anyway, so just toss that shit and forget about it. But if it pukes, into where the hearts are and on into that, you can always just collect everything and run it again. So that's the beauty about distilling is unless you really fuck it up and scorch it, you can always fix it. There's always ways to fix it. So, unless you scorch it or you get a really bad contaminated mash with some really bad bacterias in it or something like that, then of course, I've had to do that on occasion. I think once recently, maybe once when I was younger. Actually, when I did it when I was younger, it might have been a lacto or okay. I just didn't know what it was, didn't like the looks of it, and dumped it because I didn't have internet or anybody to ask or talk to. And my thoughts on a lot of this are better safe than sorry kind of thing. It's really not that critical. We're dealing with 10, 20, 30 gallon mashes or so, and really don't amount to much, and definitely not worth risking your health and safety over. So, but that's the beauty of it, man. I mean, you can always run it over again if it pukes over a little bit. I've seen people intentionally kind of puke over a little bit, to carry some flavors, But yeah, when you run it to the point where you're puking over, you need to back off a little bit, just a touch, and then you'll get plenty of good water carry forward. If you don't want a lot of water carry forward, go really low and slow. But if you want water carried forward, you can run it pretty hard. But you definitely don't want to run it so hard that you put puking over. Working on some Jimmy Red and Apple Mountain brandy. That sounds good, brother. Yeah, you can. What's going on, Colton? Everybody hear me all right? I'm sorry, I'm a little slow on the what's Jeff? Two Jeffs. What's going on, Mikey? Y'all hear me okay? Everybody hear me? Not getting any replies. Blue corn and fig. Blue corn is pretty damn good. That's interesting. Blue corn and fig. Can y'all hear me? I've asked a few times, nobody's answered. Hello. Okay, good. What's up, Dave? Hey, Lisa. All right, good. I was worried. Sitting there talking, nobody replied to me. Everybody just talking in chat. I'm just going to sit back and watch the chat talk. All right, I'm going to scroll back, try to deal with these questions one at a time. You want to join the Moonshine Militia? Well, jump on Facebook and look up Moonshine Militia with an I, Militi. And join us, brother. Love to have you. Make sure that you answer the questions, and maybe in the notes, just say from questions, Distilling 101 questions and answers, and that way we'll know you coming from YouTube and coming in from there, and we can get you right on in the group, brother, for sure. But love to have you, man. Just Moonshine Militia. Actually, I think I can give you a little head start there. For all that want to join, there is the link to the Moonshine Militia. Jump in there, and but when you want to join, be sure to answer the questions. The reason we do that is there's a lot of bots on Facebook that are joining groups, and once they get in the group, they kind of delete admin and start loading up the group with spam and scams and things like that, and start collecting people's information and start sending friend requests out to people and trying to you know, perpetuate their scams and hacks and all that. So we make people just answer some simple questions just to prove that they're not a bot, you know. And unfortunately, we have to do that. But be sure, because if you don't, we'll just consider that it's maybe just another bot. Don't you? That's funny, man. That's hilarious. That's funny shit right there, brother. All right, let's get back down to. All right, if my still pukes, can I still run it? I think I talked about that one. Absolutely. Just cut back the temp a little bit. A lot of times, some of the steels come with what's called a slobber box to catch a lot of puking forward. The Vevers with the flat top had a little thumper, but it only didn't. If you didn't connect that little down comer in your thumper, it was just considered a slobber box, which it was good for that purpose. A lot of people say it's junk, but really to catch the slobber and a little bit of water condensate, it does what it's intended to do. But yeah, if you puke, you can always cut it back a little bit. And if you're stripping, you can just not worry about it. Just let it puke all over. And if you throw it back in, you're running it anyway again. So it's a no worries about that. Yeah, I agree, Scott. Next time, you learn, as you go. So this time, next time, you got to take a little bit more, give yourself a little more headspace. A good prime example. I mean, you can't even fucking boil water without foaming and shit. Every time you try to boil water to do something, if you look at it, shit starts foaming up. Just pure water. But if you notice, if you take a little bit of butter or vegetable oil or something like that, just put a touch in there, it'll help keep that foaming down. Same thing in your steel. A lot of old timers, we used to throw a little butter in there and, keep a little stick of butter and throw it in there. Well, it's bigger steel than we did that, but throw just a pat of butter in there and that'll eliminate a lot of that foaming. They make some stuff that you can buy, some bullshit chemical. Who wants that? It's just more chemicals, more shit we don't need. But they do make an anti-foaming agent. Another thing you can do if you have time, after you rack it off, after you rack everything out of your fermenter into your you can go into another barrel or something like that instead of going directly into the steel. And you can take your drill and paddle mixer, whatever you use, and mud mixer, whatever, and degas it a little bit. That'll help some. I know, like when I do a lot of my brandies and stuff like that, especially grapes, a lot of times I have a lot of carbonation in my white wines, especially. They tend to be a little more heavily carbonated for some reason. And a lot of your beers will be the same way, when you're doing grains. That's why they call it a beer. Um, so if you want to get rid of some of that carbonation, you can degas before you go into the stew. Excuse me, that just ate like an hour ago, maybe 30 minutes ago. Some big juicy ribeye, prime rib. Um, but yeah, just degas, with your drill and paddle mixer, and just keep going at it. I may have a video somewhere on my phone or somewhere of it. But you can tell, how much gas you got in it when you do that. It'll foam up quite a bit, and you can make it go flat, and that'll help a little bit. But just getting like Scott said, give yourself a little more extra headspace, and that'll help. That'll help it a lot. Yes, sir. It sure is. Scrolling down, making sure I said howdy to everybody. Trying to get your computer up. What's wrong, man? You have some issues or what, brother? I'm glad to hear you're doing good, brother. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Trickster. I didn't get to greet you. Welcome, welcome, Gary. Good to have y'all in here. That's funny shit right there, man. I gotta post again. uh, it's a good thing that you're the moonshiner, not your wife. What would you do if your wife came in there and said, "I'm gonna be stripping this afternoon"? What? I don't think so. Facebook's pretty easy to do, brother. Once you get on there, it's pretty easy to navigate around and figure it out. Um, I will say, man, it's kind of addictive. Especially once you start seeing a bunch of old buddies and old friends and old high school friends, and got a bunch of family on there and a whole bunch of everybody, and start making a bunch of new friends on there, and start getting in the militia and seeing all what we're talking about, getting into the hobby. Yeah, clear your schedule up a little bit if you decide to join us, man, because it's a lot of fun. It's definitely addictive. Awesome. Glad y'all joining us. Let's see if I can might be able to just jump in there and uh, I'll have to take care of it in a minute. It takes time for everything to. All right. Should I put Orin in the match? Well, you're gonna have to help me out. Orin. Is this something I'm not familiar with? Orin refers to several. Okay. Okay. I was wondering. I was thinking maybe it's some kind of fruit I don't know of or something. Um, yeah, help me out, brother. Orange, maybe. Let me know let me know what she's thinking, bro. Okay, Trickster, do you have a hydrometer? And that's heavy on the sugar. Um, it's good to have a hydrometer. That way you can measure not the proofing hydrometer. That's what you measure. That's an alkalometer. We're looking more for a triple scale hydrometer that tells you the amount of sugar that you have in your wash. Um, Scott's right. To around two, two would be a pretty good, perfect number to do per gallon. 3.5 to 4 is going to give you way too much alcohol. It's going to be really strong. Your yeast may not be able to finish out. It's going to get, sugar washes tend to go acidic really quickly. They work off really quickly. And as a result, you build up a lot of acids, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit more tonight. There's been some questions on lactic acid, lactobacillus, and some other organic acids. So we're going to cover a little bit of that tonight once we get through some of these questions. But yeah, you build up some acidification really quickly. So having some oyster shells are in there anytime you do a wash is almost imperative. It'll help. The crushed oyster shells, you get a 50-pound bag, Tractor Supply, it's like 12, $15 maybe. I can't remember what it was. Might be a little bit more than that. But they're cheap. They're good to use in gardening if you do any gardening as well. They're great for your soil. They help keep everything kind of neutral and keep things from building up acidic. It also helps with your plants and their calcium uptake, which is a requirement for a lot of our like tomatoes and peppers and other things like that. So it's great for that. Also, in the fermentation process, calcium is an essential mineral, or element. So it's really important to have there as well. Just buy a bag. You can You take a hammer, pound them up a little bit more if you got really big chunks. Boil them, boil them to get any off flavors out and kill any microbial, bacteria or anything else that might be in it. So boil them really good, get them a good neutral. They shouldn't, change your flavor any once you do that. Once you get them pretty much cleaned up, rinse them real well with water, let them sit, and then you put them in like make you a little cheesecloth bag and put your couple handfuls in, depending on the size of your mash. If you got a 20-gallon mash, couple of handfuls, maybe a couple pounds, not like a bean bag that you throw, should be sufficient, but it won't change your pH rapidly like a baking soda. It's more of a buffer, and acids eat away at it, and it just prevents things from getting more acidic, as opposed to buffering it to the point where it's just instantaneous like a baking soda. Baking soda is really something you use in an emergency, um, and it does alter your flavor. It does, cause stress on your yeast. So that's something that we use in the last resort. So if you use these crushed oyster shells, it'll help you prevent you from getting to the point where you need to start throwing in baking soda in an emergency. You just, when you start your fermentation, you really need to start with water that's around a 5.3 anyway, slightly acidic. So when you do that and you get all your mash and everything in, you're getting ready to pitch yeast. Just throw the bag of oyster shells in at about the same time you do the yeast, and they'll work together because part of the fermentation process. And that's somewhere we're going to go tonight. There's some organic acids that are created during during the process. So um, as that happens, your pH tends to drop. In a sugar wash, it crashes. It goes really fast, it goes really hard, and the pH drops really fast. So that's definitely some things that's going to help you. But yeah, you're about twice as much as you need on the sugar, and having that hydrometer will definitely help you balance and keep track of of things as it happens. At the same time, you want to taste it, and at the very first you put it in there. Let's just hypothetically say you're 1.080 with 2 pounds per gallon, and reach in there and taste it. It's just sugar and water. It's not going to kill you. A lot of people are scared to taste their mashes. It's either a wine or a beer, depending on what you're doing, or a wash. So taste it, and taste it as it progressive, and check it with your hydrometer, and taste it when you think it's about done. Taste it, and then check it with your hydrometer. That way, when you break your hydrometer, which you will, you'll be able to kind of go by your taste until you can get another one in, from Amazon or wherever. What's going on, Kenny? What's up, brother? What's that put? Your put, oh, 2 per gallon. I think it's close to 108. I'll have to check. It's been a while since I've done a sugar wash. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I say sugar, doesn't it? Yeah, it's 108. Yeah, 2 pounds of sugar per gallon of water is around a 108. Yeah, I was thinking it was, but I got so many damn numbers in my mind. But yeah, it's cost 1070, 1080. That's perfect. Don't really want, in brandies and stuff, 1080. That's a good number. You really don't want to go way beyond that. Like, unless you're going to like do a vodka. If you're going to do a vodka, where you're going to really crank the proof up, and you're going to use plates, and you're going to strip taste, um, then you can go a little bit higher. But it's going to be hot, But once you get it over those plates and air it out, or maybe run it the second time, yeah, it's not going to be so bad. But 1070, 1080 is a great starting number. In grains, you're going to have a little bit lower, probably 106070 if you go all grain. Um, but yeah, that's great. Can I distill, mill, or high life down to a liquor? You can, but the problem is with beers, commercial beers like that, or beers with hops, is you got hops and hops oils, and hops really don't distill well. I mean, it'll be okay. I mean, it'll be drinkable. It'll be kind of still skunky. It's better if you do a beer without the hops, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can just clean your still out real good afterwards. You'll get some oil buildups and some scum there at the water level. But yeah, it'll be fine. It won't be the best. It won't be the best distillate though. I mean, it'll be drinkable. I don't know. It depends on your idea of drinkable. Some people are like, no, they'll turn their nose up at me. I mean, it has to be pretty offensive before I won't drink it or have to have really bad taste or something. But yeah, it'll be all right. Or wines. You can do like box wines. Yeah, you can, absolutely. Yep, they sure do. What's up, Scully? What's going on, brother? How's Mr. Scully today? What temp range do you ferment outside? Well, outside you're pretty much at a mercy of the outside temperatures. Right now, you know, like where I'm at, it's still too cold outside because like nights are 40, days are 70. So the average, you know, is somewhere in between, and it's just, yeah, you just ain't gonna like it. If you're inside, like in a basement where you got a pretty good constant temperature in the 70s, that's a pretty ideal spot to be. If you have a root cellar or something like that, it's pretty ideal. It's dark, it's cool. But generally, inside your house temperatures, where people can tend to keep it in the 70s, is a perfect, you know, temperature to do. So yeah, it's you know, in the 70s where you can get a constant. It's best to have the constant temperature. Temperature swings generally is only good when you're aging your whiskey, like in a barrel or something. You know, the temperature swings really benefit you a lot, but when you're fermenting, not so much. Um, it's generally happier at a fairly constant temperature. So if you have a basement or something, you know, inside, as long as you leave yourself plenty of headspace, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing it inside. You're not going to build up a bunch of CO2 that you got to worry about, or, you know, gas or anything. You know, you might get a little bit of odors out of some of them, you know, some of your fermentations, but I airlock most of the stuff I do, you know, anyway, unless it's a grain, you know, that's going to work off in, you know, less than a week. I generally don't airlock those unless I'm going to be going on vacation or something. But you know, like my brandies, my wines and stuff, I always airlock all that. All right, Tim. Well, thanks for joining us. Jump in there and jump in Facebook, man. Get it loaded up and join the militia, and we can, you know, help answer questions that you may have that's not on Wednesday and Saturday. So, you know, anytime you got a question, jump in there to ask it. That's kind of the reason we made the group, because a lot of the other groups, every time somebody asks a question, they'd either get a bad answer or they'd get trolled by a bunch of people, and we don't do that in there. So if you troll, probably don't want to join, man, because we'll boot you as soon as you do. But if you're serious about it and you're really into the hobby, we'd definitely love to have you. Do it live every Thursday at 6. Interesting. Well, you'll have to tell us more about that, Scott. And are you in the militia? And where are you doing it from, brother? I know that the girls do one at 8 on the militia page, but you know, might come in and check you out from 6 to 8. But then I gotta go see Lisa and the girls. That's at 8 every Thursday. Ladies' night. Miss Lisa. All right, here we go. 20 pounds sweet taters on the smoker and 63 pounds of agave. Damn, bro, that smells good. What's the temp that your taters are getting to on the smoker? Don't let them get beyond like I guess 30, degrees. Sweet potatoes have natural amylase built into them. And I mean, if you plan on using like a, high temp liquid glucose or a high temp alpha, and you got some liquid glucose, it's not a big deal. But if you want to utilize some of the enzymes that are in the sweet potatoes themselves, you can take the skins off because that's where a lot of them are, and cook your taters. But if you keep the temperatures kind of low um, as you smoke them, those enzymes will survive and they'll help. But I definitely recommend supplementing it with alpha and glucose just the same. But yeah, the smoked sweet potatoes really do well, man. They do. What's going on, brother? Just work hard, play hard. I'm just going to call you work, man. Yep, triple scale. I'm behind again. Absolutely, pineapple's awesome around, man. No co-host, just me for now. I may come up with a co-host. I don't know. I'm just trying to do an educational thing, and Roger, and I did, we had a good time. We enjoyed it, and I know me and Mark, we all three did it at one point in time. But it just comes time when visions differ, and I just wanted to go a different route, and I wanted to make a split before friendships were affected. Sometimes that's difficult to do, but I just want to take it a different direction, and you know that's pretty much the situation with that. No hard feelings anywhere. Just I did the podcast for a specific reason, and I didn't feel like I was actually getting done what I wanted to get done. So I figured there needed to be some changes made. And there was a few things that happened, but I don't want to rehash all that. Let's look to the future, man. Look forward. Gonna send you 2 weeks ago. Now pics. Awesome. Now you've lost me because I was probably talking about it when you posted that, and that was probably 10 freaking minutes ago, and now I don't know what it's about. So let me get caught up, and you can tell me again, Richard. I definitely look forward to seeing your wife's artwork though at the at Maggie Valley this year. Citrus is hard to do. It can be challenging. You just have to get your pH paper out and keep track of the pH of things. A lot of people tend to believe citrus is more acidic than it actually is. A lot of you know generally we're dealing with starting pHs around 5.2 or 3, so it's slightly acidic to begin with, and that's good. That's where we want it. That's where our yeast wants it. That's helps keep the bacteria down. That's one of the reasons that we try to ferment at a little bit lower pH. There's a lot of bacteria likes a neutral pH, and it likes moisture. It likes oxygen. So that's why we try to eliminate the oxygen with the airlocks or just a cover over top, a towel or something, just to hold in the CO2 and not let it escape so fast. So usually a towel, just a little lid will help, hold in the CO2 and let it force the oxygen out. And, pushing down that cap every once in a while keeps it moist, and that helps keep, oxygen from getting into the liquids as well. So um, if you again use the crushed oyster shells, it'll help keep that pretty much neutralized, and you can get some pretty good, pretty interesting. I've done some pineapple. It worked out well. Yeah, just try the crushed oyster shell, Scott. It's basically the same. It's calcium carbonate, bro. I mean, that's what crushed oyster shells are. Boil them up good, clean them up good. You don't want to carry any salts or any kind of odors from the oysters originally. I'm not sure how they treat them at the plant where they start. So I'm not sure exactly how clean and bacteria free they are when I get them. I know a lot of times they sell them at tractor feed supply stores for gardening, but most importantly chickens. They use it with the chickens love to peck on it, and it gives them a little grit in their belly, and it also helps them with their calcium. Keeps their calcium levels up in their body, so their eggs are good and hard, and it makes it better for shipping, so they can ship their eggs, and it makes their eggshells good and tough and available to transport better. So they're cheap. Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than the stabilizer, the 5.2 that you're talking about. But it works fine. It's the same thing. If you notice it when you pour that calcium carbonate in water, it's just going to float on the top, and you shake it. It won't. It doesn't want to mingle very well. It doesn't want to mix up very well. Over time, it will. And that makes what if you can get a bunch dissolved in water. That's what I do with a powder at the bottom of the bag when I get it. I'll pull out all the chunks and I'll bust them up to a certain size, and then I use little cheesecloth bags of it. But the powder that's in the bottom, I'll pour that into like a gallon jug of water or a 5 gallon big uh, jug of water, and just let them dissolve in there over a long period of time. And that makes for a little bit more. If you need to boost pH real quickly, you can add that, but at the same time you got to think you're diluting because you're adding water. So that's always a consideration as well. But it's a good quick way to boost the pH without stressing the yeast, which um, baking soda will do. Baking soda has uh, salts, that the sodium, that really the yeast don't like. It burns them. They don't like it. It stresses them. I mean, some people use it to intentionally stress the yeast to get certain congeners and things going, because when you stress, they give off flavors. Sometimes it's off flavors, and sometimes they're good flavors. But that's a pretty higher level. That's high level distilling technique, and something that you'd have to, once you get really good at distilling and mashing, and you're very familiar with everything, you can predict how everything's going to be. Then you can do some experimentation and have some control groups, and add some baking soda and see what it does, and how it affects flavors at different times during the fermentation, and try to create some unique flavors. What's going on, Justin? What's up, brother? Good to see you on here, my man. I ain't talked to you in a while, man. You need to get up with me sometime. I doubt you screwed up, brother. What? How did you screw up? Let me scroll back. What did you do? Yeah, the 5.2 stabilizer works just fine. It's the same. It's the same principle as the oyster crust oyster shells. It's a buffer. So basically, as things become more acidic, it eats up, the calcium carbonate out of the buffer or the oyster shells, and it neutralizes itself. With the oyster shells, when you're done, you pull that bag out, rinse it. Hot water will kill any bacteria from the fermentation on it, and you just throw it, let it dry, throw it in the corner, let it dry, and next time you're ready to go, throw it back in there. If you're ready to remash back in, just leave it in there, and it works well. And sour mashes, when you're adding your back set in and it's pretty acidic, it helps keep that buffered up a little bit, and they work, and they create calcium, and calcium is an essential element in distillation and fermentation, or in fermentation. So definitely. Yes, sir. Love me some mountain brandies. Let me scroll on down, see what's pickling lime. Yeah, pickling lime works as well. Yeah, pickling lime works great. What's going on, Wayne? I didn't see you sneak in here, brother. Yeah, pickling lime's great too. It all does the same thing. So yep, those work well. Actually, I think pickling lime probably dissolves a little better than a calcium carbonate will. Um, but yeah, all those work just fine. All right, Lisa, hurry back. Yeah, I do too, man. There's a lot of my brandies that never make it to distillation because they taste daggone good. It's like, man, this is wine. I'm bottling it. So, yeah, a lot of mine they don't make it. That'll work. Yeah, I mean, if your daytime temperatures aren't in the 90s and your garage is sweltering, having those heaters that like kick on automatically when it gets cool, I mean that's good. It's constant enough heat. I mean, it doesn't have to be like 70, 8 degrees solid 24/7. It can fluctuate some. I'm just talking about when you go from like our daytime, nighttime temps are here, 70, 40, that's a pretty big swing, or 80, 45. That's a pretty good swing, and it can stall. It just can stall at night, and all that up and down, it can be a little bit of stress, I'd imagine. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely Cyrus, good guy, very knowledgeable. He's a good dude. He and I are admins in some of the groups that I'm in. Yeah, he's a great guy. And he also has a festival coming up before too long, if I'm not mistaken. That'd be a good one to go to for those in that area. I think it's going to be in Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. So that'd definitely be a good one to go to. Or maybe it's Missouri. Shit. I'll have to. Oh yeah, Richard, I'm looking at your pictures now, brother. Yeah, that's a good lacto. Oh, what's wrong with you? Yeah, that's lacto. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. If you want to skim that off the top, you can. How far along are you in fermentation on that? I have a nomination for co-host, though. I'm almost afraid of who you're going to say. I never know if you're trolling me or serious, bro. Uh, is it a bad thing to do on grain mash in the bag? Absolutely not. That's the way you want to do it. Um, bag it up, do it in the mash. That way, your yeast have plenty of good food to munch on. If you could distill in on the grain, it's even great that way too. But most stills aren't set up to enable you to do that. But yeah, it's definitely it's the way to go. You get a lot of. I think you get more flavor that way, texture. So yeah, you're on the right track, bro. Maggie Valley. Let's see. I think I'm gonna check the calendar just to make sure I don't want to get somebody the wrong date. But July 24th. That is in Maggie Valley now, Summer Jam. July 24th is a Thursday. We have a little pre-party there at the lodge. There's a bar there at the lodge, so everybody goes there for a pre-party, and then of course Friday and Saturday. So 24th, 25th, and 26th. That Friday and Saturday, and then everybody comes home on Sunday. But yeah, definitely the 24th. Pretty good party there. Trying to think of the name of it. It's something. It's the lodge everybody goes to. I stayed there last year. I can't think of the name of it. Man, I'm getting old. But yeah, that's the dates. Let me see if somebody hadn't updated our calendar. I don't see. All right, Damon. You have to give me a damn login for this calendar so I can do it and don't have to aggravate the shit out of you to do it. But yeah, Troy Halsey is in the hospital, just got out, so hopefully his festival is still in the works and still a go. I hear he's doing a lot better. So he's got one, and I know Cyrus has one, and then there's the also one in the Arkansas. That's after Fort Smith, I think. No, Clinton, Arkansas. That's around Halloween. So there's quite a few down around Arkansas and Missouri and that general area. This year some really good festivals. We went to Arkansas last year, and it was great. And I'd say Cyrus's will be a pretty good time too, for sure. Damn near went blind. What happened, bro? I don't, I don't know what you did to damn near go blind, but pretty much a lot of the misnomers about four shots and getting so much of those in there that you can go blind. It's kind of a scare tactic used kind of like they did back in marijuana madness days, trying to scare everybody that marijuana is going to make them become psychotic killers and all that shit. You know, they tend to do that, try to scare you. But yeah, you'd have to drink some concentrated four shots in heads before you're going to go blind. But there are some things that you can do that if your steel explodes, they could cause blindness as well. But Shine On Fest October. Yeah, there we go, Scott. Thank you. Yep, that should be a good time. Damon, did you get that? David, did you get that? October 4th. You on that calendar now? Damon's busy working. I don't think he has time to do it right now, but he promises he'll have it done by the weekend, right, Damon? I know he's busy this weekend. Yes, read the hot drum around. I tried to make a rice brew my first time around, and it said 1.000, and I thought it was no good. Well, it doesn't mean that it's no good. It just means that if you started out that way, it just means that you haven't converted any of your starches, bro. So with rice, you need to cook it up. You can crush it, or grind it or whatever, and then kind of cook it up, mix it up, and then you've got to use the amylase on it just like you would any other carb, long string complex carb. A lot of people think that the high temp amylase and the liquid glucose, that's just for grains. No, that's not true. Unless you're doing like a sugar wash, you don't really have to do anything and add amylase because your sugars are already simple sugars. Your table sugar that you're using is a disaccharide. It's got a fructose and a glucose molecules bound into one, and it's a disaccharide. So those are readily edible by yeast. So you don't really have to do anything. Those are simple sugars. But when we deal with like sweet potatoes, rice, grains, anything, beans, anything that contains more complex, long chain, carbs and complex starches and carbs, you have to break them up. And the way to do that is with the amylase. Now, with rice, a lot of the sakis and stuff, they use a goby, and they use like a yellow label angel yeast. And that basically has the enzymes built into the yeast itself, into actually the powder yeast that you use. And the strain of fungus actually serves the purpose of breaking down and fermenting. So if you want to, you're at a point where if you want to just get some yellow label angel yeast off Amazon, you can throw it in there and it will actually convert it for you. Now you need to use a chart to see how many pounds of yeast per gallon of water that you use so you get the right ratios. Because if you don't have enough rice in there, even though the angel yeast is doing its stuff and breaking down those carbs and converting everything, you still may not have enough fermentable sugars to really get enough proof to be worth running. It might be worth a beer. You might have 3, 6%, that you could drink as a beer. Well, I guess six you could probably run, but 3% or something that you could drink as a beer, but that's kind of low, for distilling. So yeah, even with rice or anything like that, you still want to get that alpha amylase to chop up those big long strains and make them more manageable for the glucoamylase to come in and chop those up into actual fermentable sugars. So I would say you start out fine. You just haven't converted any of your starches yet. That's why you're getting zeros. Yeah, gelatin will clear. I try to stay away from any of this additives and all these things. I know a lot of winemakers use them and stuff, but I just think the more stuff I start adding like that, just I think it's just a money game, really. There's nothing like patience. And that's one thing that's the beauty of this, or it's the bane, beauty of the bane. Because either if you like me and you just like to, you're getting old and it's like, I'll do that tomorrow. You're in the right place, man, because you can just take your time and put this shit off for a long time and forget about it. I'll get around to it next week, like that blueberry that's been sitting in there I've been needing to do. It'll be just fine till I'm ready to do it. But if you're in a hurry all the time or run rush, 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 it don't. It's take your time and let things work off. It's really tough to schedule things, especially when you're in the spring and fall and winter. Mostly in the spring and fall when you got a lot of temperature swings because things change a lot. You get used to it in the winter time. You're heating it to a certain temperature, so it's fairly constant. In the summer, you got it in the shade and it's pretty much a constant temperature. But spring and fall you get a lot of swings, so it makes it a little bit tougher. But yeah, just take your time, let it run its course, and don't try to with clearing. I just let it fall. If the caps, I've had caps that never fell. I've had caps that stayed right there, and I just burrow me a little hole and I just rack it off, siphon it into it gets you about a 1 inch clear tube. You can get them at pet stores or whatever, or Instaf, pet tube. You got a pretty good sized fermenter, and just siphon it off and lower that tube down in it and keep lowering it and lowering it and lowering it, lowering it. Then all of a sudden you'll see it milky. You heat the yeast bed, so then you just raise it up an inch or two, and you'll be in the clear. So it'll be a cap, clear, and then yeast bed. So just siphon off those clears, and then if you want to, you can take the cap and the yeast bed and bag it up and put it in a press. You can put it in an apple press. You can put it in the mop strainer. I use one of those sometimes, and get the rest of the juice out, and then put that into a vessel and let it sit until it clears. Then rack that off if you want to go to that extreme. If not, you can always just sour mash that all that stuff back in and just carry it over to the next one and just keep doing it. That's the best way. Once you get in the summer, just sour mash all damn summer long. Learn it. It's economical. It's definitely the way to go if you like a sour mash. If you just don't like a sour mash, find a friend that can take those grains and make one for himself. But or if you're doing it to sell, or giving a lot of stuff away, and you got friends that like sour mashes, just keep that all your grains in a separate barrel and just throw sugar and water and back set on top of it, and let just keep doing a sour mash and that. Add a little spent grains every time you do yours, and perpetuate it. But that's one of the beauties of a sour mash. You don't have to strain uh, all those particulates out each time. You just rack off the clears, distill those, and sour mash everything else that's left back in again, and just keep it going. Oh, that's perfect, brother. But I definitely clean things up before you do your next fermentation. That way you don't start out with a lacto. Lacto is great if you get them late in the stage, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about lacto, and it can be a good thing. It can be a blessing, or it can be a curse. It just depends on how you control it, and you definitely have to control the lacto infection. Um, Definitely new to fermenting brew. Well, I mean, the best way to learn how to make whiskey is to go to a brew place and look how they're making beers and brews, and just eliminate the hops and follow those, and you'll make some of the best, mashes for whiskey ever was, because they really, they're very clean, they're very precise, because you're actually drinking the freaking mash, so it has to be really good and done perfectly. And if you can get that discipline in, that will convert to a really, really good whiskey. The same thing with winemaking and brandies. Learn to make the wines, learn to make them precise, with all the, you know, uh, cleanliness, sterilization that's involved with that, and ratios of everything. There's some certain chemicals that you'll use that, you know, I hate the word chemicals because immediately people think, but some of it's just kind of natural stuff that's used to kill yeast at a specific time, and you do that for wines, but for brandies not so much. So, but learning the disciplines of beer making and wine making will definitely make a better distiller and a better mash. Um, so it definitely helps. Anytime, brother. That's what we're here for. I love the questions. Keep them coming, because, a lot of people ask the same questions. So, the longer you hang out in here, you'll hear me repeat myself 1,000 times, and you'll be like a lot of the other guys in here, man. You've heard it, and you'll be, before you know it, you'll be answering people's questions yourself. So that's why we're here. Join the militia, though, so you can ask those questions. If you don't want to, if you can't wait till Wednesday or Saturday, join the militia and you can ask them any day. Yeah, I always just ferment on the grain. Absolutely. Yeah, Fort Smith. Yeah, I think. Yeah, October 4th. So that's a couple of good festivals down there in Arkansas. Um, Around in October. I think the other one is like September 1st. October 31st, they're having a Halloween festival downtown Clinton, and then they're having the Moonshine and Music Festival the following Saturday. So that's always a good time down there. But yeah, that's down in Wayne's country, Ozark. But yeah, I love the people down there, man. It reminds me a lot of the people from back home, man. They're all salt of the earth, down to the earth people, a lot like Eastern Kentucky. Can I add sugar and water to my sour mash and let it go again to just add volume to my mash if I have room in a barrel? Absolutely. I mean, if it's already going, I would say, let it go and let it finish if you already did that. But that's the whole thing with the sour mash. You're basically mashing in an all grain. And then when you're done, you're taking the grains that are left over and you're mixing some sugar, some water, some back set, and re-fermenting everything. And you continue to do that. And, every time I like to, you know, recook some grains and throw them in there and add to it just for flavor. I mean, you can do the conversion, everything if you want to. And, you can just do like 5 pounds. I don't know how, depends on the size of your ferment. If you're doing like a 40-gallon ferment, you can always add about, 5 pounds of corn, cook it up. You can do it right on your stove top, cook it up, convert it, and just dump it in there. Once you throw your liquid high temp, once you gelatinize it, put your high temp in there and let it thin out and let it cool off. You can just dump it in there and throw a little glucose on it and and just let your sour mash go and just add a little bit like that each time, and it'll keep that flavor profile up. That's the problem with a lot of times with the sour mash is you start losing a little bit of your grain flavor, and it starts getting more like a sugar wash with a little bit of grain and yeast bed, and you really don't want that. So, add a little bit of, of your grains. You can do corn. You can also throw in your adjunct grains if you want to add some, some barley or wheat or rye or whatever you want to add, oats on top of that. But yeah, it just helps keep your flavor profile up, and you can just do that in perpetuity. I mean, you just continue doing that forever and ever and ever, and just keep going. And it's very economical, and it's a lot better. I mean, you're doing a lot with sugar. You're getting a lot with the sugar, and it doesn't taste like it. I used to do what's called a thin mash. That's what a lot of us old shiners did. We'd get corn, grind it up into a cornmeal. We'd mix that with sugar. We didn't know a lot about amylase and malting and doing a lot of that stuff. You could get malted barley where I grew up, and specialty yeast and all the stuff like you can these days. I mean, some of the guys did the malt process and understood all that, but when you're just trying to make some liquor and you know cornmeal, little sugar, little thyme, and you're good to go. And that makes it what's called a thin mash. And it's not a bad drink. It's not a sugar shine, so it's got some grain flavor. But it's not a converted grain, so it's not as smooth as it's going to be if you do like a grain conversion. But it's just a good, cheap, easy way. And I think somewhere along the way they've realized the economical impact of a sour mash and how much it saved in their grain purchasing, and costs. And but of course, a lot of people don't realize is adding sugar is as expensive as adding grains that convert those sugars. So I think it takes what 2.4. I think we figured. What was it that we figured, Mikey, on that? Was it like 2.4 pounds of corn is equivalent to 1 pound of sugar or something like that once it's all converted out? So what's going on, Tim? I like Mr. Fergie. That's something we might have to talk about. Yeah, I like having somebody in here with me. Doing it alone. I did that a lot when I had my other co-host because a lot of times he wasn't able to make it for whatever reason, hunting, whatever. So, but I don't like you know being like the only one and kind of in the spotlight and just like giving a speech or something like that. But I'm a little more comfortable with it now. Let's see. Absolutely, deer corn works just fine, brother. All deer corn is yellow dent number two. That a lot of times didn't make it, didn't make the grade. Some people say for lily white or somebody like that, but a lot of times it's just a farmer's contracted for a company that bags deer corn, and their yellow dent that they take out of their field is the same as any yellow dent that goes into lily white or any other commercial place that makes it for corn meals or for sweet feed. Usually gets a little bit. A lot of times they'll say that's what falls on the floor when they're bagging up deer corn. That might be true because it get there's a lot of cobs and stuff in that, so it's not real clean. But if you can get a good clean deer corn, it's corn. Corn yellow dent number two is yellow dent number two. We've had those discussions, and it's Justin. He's from corn country out there in Iowa. We've talked. They grow yellow dent number two. It's all the same. Depending on where it goes, just depends on where you're contracted to send it, and that's how it ends up getting used. So it's not like a particular farmer grows a special variety of yellow dent number two for lily white, and another one that has a different grade of yellow dent number two for like a deer corn. It just wherever you're contracted for it and wherever it ends up. So it's yeah, yellow dent number two, deer corn does great. As long as it's good and clean, yeah, just grind it up and use it. It's great. And welcome back, Miss Lisa. Hope you had a good dinner. Yeah, yeah. Usually in your deer corn, and it's just corn. I think some might put some salt in there to get them, licking on it, and minerals in there to keep them, horn growth up or something like that. If you get some kind of specialty, but most of the deer corn I've seen is just pretty much bagged corn. Uh, but like Dustin said, it is important. Read the ingredients and make sure that it's nothing just but corn. And you can go to Track Supply and just get, just plain yellow dent corn, just bags of corn. That's as good as about anything you're going to find, and it's very inexpensive, and it's a very cheap way to make sugar. People don't realize that it's as cheap to make sugar from corn as it is just buying a bag of sugar. Go figure. But yeah, that's why when they make ethanol, that's why they don't use sugar to make ethanol. It's less expensive to use corn, but you have to be getting a good deal on it. It doesn't mean go out there and pay $3 a pound for some high end heirloom corn. That tends to get expensive. Very tasty, but expensive nonetheless. Yep, you're right, brother. Yeah, we Mikey and I sat down. We figured it out. It's cheaper to get your sugar from corn than just buying sugar. Dextrose is awesome. Um, if I dextrose, hands down, dextrose is probably the best sweetener if you're just going to, use something for sweetener that you can get. It's pure glucose. It's not a disaccharide like a table sugar that we were talking about earlier. That's got your fructose, your glucose bonded into a molecule and two molecules. This is just a single molecule of glucose, and the yeast love it, man. They will eat that shit up. It really ferments fast, and it's what I use when I do an all grain. If my all grain, doesn't convert well, and it happens to all of us. There's times, and I've talked to people that's done it for many, many years, and every once in a while they'll get a fermentation that just or a conversion that just doesn't work well for some reason. Like, man, I did everything I normally do, but for some reason it just didn't convert well. Shit happens. So when that happens, I have dextrose, and I'll throw some dextrose in on it and use my hydrometer. It dissolves readily in the water, and you get a good quick reading on it. And I use dextrose. Yeah, definitely. It's expensive. Get up with Phil Billy. He's got a pretty good line on some lesser expensive. I think it's cheaper buying it from Phil Billy, especially if you're close by where you can pick it up. Shipping, of course, is an expense, but if you can pick it up, you can get it cheaper from Phil Billy than Amazon. So if you're close by Phil Billy and in the that area of Ohio or close enough driving by or plan a trip and get some grains and pick a bag of that up at the same time and get a jar rig or whatever, kind of make the trip worth it and just load up because shipping's what kills you almost, the stuff that he has. He's got great prices. It's just, having shit shipped is, a cost for everybody. So plan a trip to Field Billy's, get you, a bunch of corn, get your jar rig, and pick up a bag of dextrose because I love dextrose. I use it a lot when I need to. Yeah, cracked corn's great. About the cracked corn, I like getting the solid kernel. I've got a grinder now. Used to I bought crack because I got tired of breaking blenders and food processors. And my fiance, she'll be glad I said that instead of girlfriend. She's listening, I'm sure. Aren't you? No, maybe not. But she got tired of me busting up all her fucking appliances, so I ended up getting a grinder. But cracked corn's fine if you can get it fresh, and when it was, when it came out, when it's cracked, because it gets stale. Just like anything else, it gets stale once it oxidizes and is opened up. That kernel is opened up. It gets stale. So if you're going to use it, you're getting ready to use it, that week or that month, absolutely crack. You don't have to worry about grinding it up if it's clean. A lot of times cracked corn gets cob in it too, and And they, some of these outfits throw, a little cob in there on you and to load out the weight and, cut it, I guess you could say, with a little cob. But I like getting the kernels. It's generally a lot cleaner. You don't get cob in your whole kernels, and they're good. They last a year or two. That way, and it's got a good solid husk that keeps all the oxygen out, so they don't oxidize. And as soon as you crack it, it's like coffee bean, man. It's awesome, fresh. You got that good aroma, and it just makes for better. I like cracking my fresh, but if you can get good fresh cracked corn, it's absolutely perfect. Actually, the best. You don't have to grind it. Yeah, there we go. I didn't even say that. Sometimes I talk about it all the time. Yeah, I've been through quite a few old mixers. I used to go to Goodwill and get them a little food processors. It's just so freaking slow that way, man. After I got my grinder, it's like I really kicked myself in the ass for just not biting the bullet and getting one and just saving up and getting one sooner. Man, they're so nice. And Black Friday, I got one. It was like 160 some dollars. It's normally like 230, 250 range. That's generally what they cost, around 230, the decent ones. And man, I love it. I was like, man, wow. So you go through it so quickly, man. It's just like, what used to be an all day chore, it's just a 1 hour thing now. And it's just so much quicker. If even if that. So yeah, definitely. Bucky, super cheap corn, 50 pounds. That's right, brother. That's the best ever. The cheaper it is, the better. You can't beat that. I didn't know Bucky's had it that cheap. I may have to go out and check them out. We got one in Richmond. Yeah, yeah, I think so too, Scott. I think they just call it deer corn so they can add $10 to the bag. Yep, it is pricey. And it's hard to buy. You can't buy it 4 pounds like that, man. Oh my God, it kills you. I buy 50-pound bags, and I think Amazon has them for like $80. So it's a couple of dollars a pound. Generally, table sugar is like 70 cents a pound. So it's definitely considerably more expensive, about twice. Philbilly, I think, has a pretty good deal on it. What's going on, Mama B? Yeah, I do a little crack. I do a little grinding on my crack too when I buy crack. If I get the crack now, I don't really get it that much anymore like I used to. But yeah, I used to get the cracked and put it in my blender because it is easy on the blender. So I cheated a little bit. What's going on, Jason, Mama B? Hope y'all doing well tonight. I live really close to the Roaring River. Moonshine owner Chad. He said if I come up with a nice flavor, maybe work something out. Awesome. Roaring River. I love the sound of that. As long as it ain't floodwaters. We've been getting a lot of that lately. Yeah, I'd say it'd be cheaper to buy it. It's you can actually get close to a dextrose by inverting table sugar. Um, you can take like a table sugar and mix some acid with it. Well, you have to bring it to a specific temperature. I think it's like 236. Don't quote me on that. That's just off the cuff. I'm sure it's going to be maybe a few degrees difference. I can look it up in a minute. But to make an invert sugar, you can take citric acid, or you can use lemon juice or whatever, and the acid helps speed up the process. And you're actually breaking the bond of the fructose glucose I was talking about earlier. And that bond that holds those together is called a glycosidic bond. And with the acid and the heat, you can break that bond and you can create two monosaccharides, one of fructose, one of glucose. Now it's going to taste a little bit different than your glucose, but to the yeast, they just love it. They love that monosaccharide. It's so easy for them to eat. It's not stressful. The disaccharide, yeah, they can choke those down and work those. Some trisaccharides they can, not many, but when you get larger than three, molecules bonded together. It's called an oligosaccharide, and that's like 3 to 12. Um, and then they can't eat those. And then, of course, beyond that, it's called a polysaccharide, meaning many. So, yeah, you can actually kind of make a dextrose, but it's not truly a dextrose, but inverting sugar. Just be careful not to take it too far, because if you start caramelizing the sugar and you start getting a color and a tint and it caramelizes, that actually makes a complex. It makes it a polysaccharide, or maybe an oleo or an oligosaccharide. Um, that the yeast can't eat. So be real careful if you're making an inverted sugar. But those work really well, and yeast love it, and it mixes, with the liquids very readily. I mean, you pour it in, it's mixed. You don't have to dissolve it. So yeah, yeah. Ask them. I mean, I'm sure they love answering questions, man. If they have the time, absolutely, man. And if not, come here. We'll answer. How beautiful. I know you're talking to me. Oh, you're talking to Mama B. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I know. I missed you the last 12 hours too. It's been so long since I've seen you, Mama B. Like 12 whole hours. Jason, you never did tell me what Jason was playing last night. They've moved away from Warzone. I'm about to do the same. I'm tired of it. So find out what they're playing. I've been thinking about playing that Delta Force. I've been checking that out. You can use corn syrup? Absolutely. Corn syrup works very well. Even the high fructose corn syrup works well. You just get more of the fructose. That's the ratio. Some of them do like, I think they say like 60-40 or something like that. And that's just a ratio of fructose to glucose. And I think the high fructose, hence high fructose corn syrup, just means that you're getting 60% fructose, 40% glucose, and that's what that is. So that's why they call it high fructose corn syrup. It's not a 50-50, it's generally a 60-40. So ginger brandy. Well, I can't say that I've made ginger brandy, brother. I wish I could be a little more helpful. I mean, ginger. What's your base fruit going to be? What? Because I don't think you can ferment just. I mean, ginger can. I mean, ginger might have starches in it. Starches in ginger. Ginger rhizomes contain starch, with studies indicating a yield of around 12.3%. Not a lot. Yeah, they're definitely going to need some help. There's not enough starch in just a ginger rhizome, just a ginger root. There's a lot of amylose in them, though. The starch in ginger contain approximately 18 to 30% amylose. So yeah, amylopectins. Gelatinization, 76 to 85 centigrade. So I mean, technically you could. It would probably take a whole lot. They're just not a whole lot. Cassava, is has a lot, or a potato, generally has a lot more starch. But I'm guessing that you probably could, if that's what you're talking about, starting with the ginger. But if you're just using something else and you just want it like a ginger tasting or a ginger spice or tasting, then maybe infusing an infuser with some ginger root and ground up ginger or something, maybe a way, because So let me know what your thoughts are, brother. I mean, it sounds interesting. I've never really thought about fermenting the ginger, but I mean, it does have some starch in it, but it's going to take a lot. But if you got a lot, I mean, it may be something that's better again as a beer. Once you ferment it, you have some ginger ale, and I guess that's where ginger ale got started, was making an ale from ginger. So just make you a ginger beer. That may be where you want to stop with it, brother. It may be so damn good you want to stop there. But if not, I'm sure you can. But again, you're going to have to use, amylase and, alpha and glucoamylase on it. But it definitely sounds interesting. And there is some natural enzymes in probably on the skin. But again, if you don't want to cook those off, it has a pretty high gelatinization temperature of 76 to 85 degrees centigrade. I'm not real good. 75 centigrade is what? It's a Fahrenheit. It's probably gonna 167. So that's gonna probably denature any kind of beta amylase that you might have in the skin to gelatinize that. So yeah, cook it at 167, probably an hour, couple of hours till it gelatinizes, and then let it cool down, or add your high temp then, and let it cool down, and add your glucose at about the same time you're going to add your yeast, and you should be pretty good. But it definitely sounds interesting. Let us know how it works out, brother. I mean, if you got a lot, ginger is not cheap, so. But if you got a place that's got a lot of ginger, you got a lot of cheap ginger or free. If you know somebody grows it, it'd be awesome. I mean, it sounds good just as a beer, though. Ginger ale, make a true ginger ale. Of course, me being a ginger, I'm kind of partial to that. Been using cane sugar instead of table sugar for now. Yeah, a lot of cane's good. Yeah, cane sugar definitely. Absolutely, cane's great. Probably definitely better actually than table sugar. Yeah, definitely works quickly. And don't have all the refinement and the I don't know how much table sugar goes through the bone charring process that they used to. Some of it does. A lot of the table sugar is beet sugar these days, and that's not as good as a cane sugar, or a table sugar that is refined from cane instead of beets. Thinking about making a sugar wash and then running it and then redistilling it after cutting it down with ginger juice. That sounds good. If you've got an infuser, you could probably grind up that ginger root if you got access to the ginger root and put that in your infuser, man. That would probably carry over flavor really well as opposed to a ginger juice. Ginger juice is probably watered down pretty heavily and is not going to have that concentrated flavor. But I think like a ginger root, you know, if you could take that and put it in an infuser, I think if you just grind it and shave it off into an infuser, you probably pull some pretty damn good flavors out of that. Be interesting. I would like to try that. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, it varies. I've seen it almost up to 100, and then sometimes down to about 80, mid 80s. So absolutely. Yeah, Roaring River sounds nice, man. I'm not quite sure where that is, but yeah, I no, nope, 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 absolutely not. Yeah, you don't want pellets, bro, and it's really going to be hard to pick through it. Um, if you can return it, I would. If not, I would find somebody that has some cows or something and give it to them, or Use it for attracting deer if you need to. But those pellets contain a lot of minerals and supplements, and they taste like shit when they ferment. So, or when they distill too, it carries over. They're horrible. It's a big no. Just that's why I say don't get any sweet feeds. If you want to do a sweet feed, just do your own. Get regular corn, grind it up, and then put you some molasses over it. If you want to get that molasses kind of a rum, grain, a rum corn liquor kind of combo thing going on. I've seen a lot of people do that. It seems to be real popular. And some people like sweet feed shine, and some there's some for everybody. It's an opinion. When it comes to taste, it's an opinion. 9 out of 10 people may turn their nose up at it, but there's that 1 in 10 that loves it. So you can't say it's a fact that nobody likes it, because there's that 1 in 10 that does. But I would say the majority of people that I've heard that have drank Sweet Feed Shine, most more not don't prefer it than do, but some think it's fine. It's just a matter of taste, and I'm not knocking anybody that likes it or tries it. It's just according to taste. It's just what you like. I'm gonna move myself up here so I don't get hidden. Some people may want to read my lips. I'd say I'm pretty hard to read lips when you got a big mustache hiding your lips. But yeah, most people tend to kind of shy away from the sweet feeds. There's nothing like just good old, cracked corn or whole kernel freshly cracked and run that good corn liquor, or a good sour mash, which remember it's shots time. And this is compliments of Mr. Jeff. Appreciate you, brother. Some good select Bloody Butcher Sour Mash Select. It's about 100 and I think he said 140 proof, maybe. It's pretty spicy. Man, it's good though. Damn good. Good old Bloody Butcher. And the thing about Bloody Butcher, a lot of people don't like it because it's earthy, very earthy. But when you're sour mashing it, I think you get that earthy out and a lot of your oils out on that first generation. So subsequent generations tend to be less earthy and oily, and pretty damn good. It's a pretty damn good drink right there, man. Oh, Jeffrey knows what he's doing, man. He makes some good liquor for sure. I love oats, man. I'll throw oats into about every grain I do, and I don't even a lot of times I won't even count it. People say, what do you got to? Oh, it's 3 grain. I got some corn and barley and some wheat in there, and I don't even think about calling it 4 grain because I throw a couple few handfuls of oats in there, and I do it every time just to kind of soften it up a little bit and to make it a little smoother. So oats just goes into everything, except my brandies, of course, but. Yeah, I like having oats along with mine. But yeah, if you've got somebody that you can give that to, if you can take it back, I would. But from now on, just get good old corn kernels or cracked. It's cheap. It's definitely the way to go. If you convert it just right, get you some high temp amylase and some glucose and learn to gelatinize and convert. And we can walk you through every bit of that and have you know, mashing like a pro, man. You'll be doing all grains, and man, everybody tastes it to be like, man, that's. I mean, it makes such a good shine, when you do an all grain like that. It's so smooth and it's got so much flavor. It's definitely the way you want to go. Oh, it's an extract. Okay, well that's cool. Definitely, if it's an extract, that means it's concentrated, and that should work great. Um, 6 jar system on an 18-gallon Vever football. Man, you got it going home, brother. Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. That's perfect setup, brother. Fuck yeah, man. Yeah, those that if that's the case, if it is an extract, then yeah, I thought you were just talking about like a ginger juice that old people drink, like a ginger ale or something like that that's watered down. But yeah, that's perfect, bro. Hell yeah, I you're gonna have to come to a festival, man, so I can try some of that shit. You're gonna have to let us know how it comes out because that sounds real damn good. Yeah, if you make your own sweet feed, it works out well. You can kind of do a rum and a corn liquor at the same time, and it has a unique flavor that's good. But I just can't do the store bought stuff because it's horrible. The molasses that goes in it's probably definitely not food grade. Half the time I wonder whether or not it's sulfured or unsulfured. It's just some people like it, but not for me. Argentine orange, malted oats. That's awesome, man. That'll be good. That'll be good and sweet and smooth. That'll be a good drink, brother. That sounds real good. I'm gonna do some the Ohio Blue and some Oaxacan green. I'm gonna get some of the Oaxacan green and get some Ohio Blue and maybe some of this Hickory White and some Jimmy Red and we'll do a red, white, and blue. And then I'm thinking about doing some Oaxacan and green with some Amanda Palmer. So I'm thinking those are going to be two combinations. And we'll do a red, white, and blue, and then a green and multicolored. I guess the Amanda Palmer just call it a multicolored, but I think both of those will make something pretty unique. Of course, everybody's done the red, white, and blue, and it's excellent. Really, if you haven't tried it, I mean, it works out real well. The Jimmy Red, Hickory King White, and Ohio Blue. It's a damn good drink right there. It's a great combination. It's got a lot of depth, character, flavor. It's got a lot of everything that you like and that you need. It's definitely the way to go. It's good stuff. Yeah, that's probably what that's actually. I think that's what that's what Sim feels American corn. I'm pretty sure that's his red, white, and blue combo. Jimmy Red, Hickory King White, and Ohio Blue. Yep, it's the bomb. It's a good mix. I'm going to try Trucker's corn. I've never tried it. I've heard of it recently, and I found out last night that it's been around a while, but I've just never heard of it. I'm not sure if that's technically a strain of corn or if it's just a slang for a specific strain of corn, but it's a white dent and a yellow dent. You can get either. So I'm thinking it's probably just not a strain because you wouldn't have, the same strain, white or yellow. It usually have a different name. So I don't know if this is a brand name or a specific yellow dent, or if it's something different than yellow dent, or if it's not a starchy corn. Um, yeah, but I'm hearing that there's like white or yellow. Scott, is that the case? Tell me, you know a lot about the truckers corn. I mean, is it a specific variety or is this a brand name or exactly what? I'm not real familiar with it. But everybody that's used it loves it, so that's be good. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I definitely want to try it. But yeah, Scott is right. Billy has a red, white, and blue America corn, America corn. I think it's Jimmy Red, Hickory White, and Ohio Blue. But I read today that a huge distillery here in Kentucky might be on the auction block coming soon. And I mean, it's just a $250 million distillery. If anybody's interested in going in partners, I can come up with 1,000 or so. If you got the other 249.9 million, man, we're ready to go. What's going on, Kimbo? What's up, brother? Question: do you like dark or light wood grain colors? Wood grain color. You talking about oaking? You know, do I like it when it's a lighter or a darker? I like oak. You know, and I've drank stuff that I thought was pretty damn good, and somebody's like, "Oh, it's over oaked," and I'm like, so I like something that's been aged. You know, longer, that tends to be darker. You know, some people say, you know, after it's in the barrel 6 years, it starts to degrade. So your 9 and 11 year olds, it's not as good as a six. Whatever. I like it. There's some 11-year-old, 12-year-old stuff is pretty fucking good, man. I don't know. But I think this people say over oaked. They tend to talk about people that are using the spirals and the chips and that. And yeah, I don't like it when it gets that's over tannins instead of over oaked. You're just getting a lot of tannins in there, and you're not really getting characteristics of and flavors out of the wood and the char, and you're not getting the time. Esterification is something else I want to talk about a little bit tonight too, and we were talking about earlier the organic acids we were going to talk about, and the esterification of those acids into esters and flavors is something that's also done in the aging process that just quick aging with chips and spirals can't do. You know, you can get a little bit of esterification and changes and flavors from that, but really time in a barrel, you can't duplicate that unless you do, you know, like one of these especially salmon, you know, barrels or Badmos or this type barrels, you know, these are designed to go about the same term, a couple of years as a larger barrel, but and so they do well too. But like if you're using staves, which I do, or spirals or chips, you're getting a lot more tannins than the aging process. So you're getting a little bit of the flavor, but you're not getting the true flavor of an aged spirit. Um, Generally, putting it on a barrel and on wood changes 60 to 80% of the flavor profile. So it adds that much flavor to the whiskey that you're drinking. So what you do in that, you know, 20 to 40% is what you do in your fermentation and your distillation. The other 60 to 80% is in the selection of the barrel that you make, the level of char that it has, and the weathering. And when I mean weathering, the changes in barometric pressure and temperature swings, the more that you can get, the better, which is why Kentucky is such a good place, because we get such drastic swings in temperatures, and we have all the seasons here, and barometric pressure has changed a lot here. And of course, the calcium in the water here is high, and the mineral content in the water is high, and it's perfect for fermentation, much like Ireland, but it's what makes Kentucky kind of unique, and you really can't replace that with staves or spirals. I use a lot of staves. I use those mostly, but I've got 115-gallon barrel, and I'm getting another one. I've got another one. I just got to pick it up off Philbilly, um, that I'm going to fill up and age in those. And but I do have jars with staves. Those work real well. You can kind of pull a little bit of the character of the last distillate out and get a little cheating a little bit, get a little bit of that Jim Beam or whatever barrel you're using. You can get a little bit of that out of there, but I like using staves. But definitely, Yeah, Scott, in the baby swing, it in and out of the freezer. I'd be, I'd do that more. The baby swing, agitates it and oxygenates it and stirs it up, and it can help get some, penetration into the pores of the wood and stuff, and sloshing around and movement definitely helps, But kind of like Mark and Digger putting it on the Ferris wheel thing or whatever, the tilt the world they did up there, that little park. It helps people putting it on, boats and stuff with the rocking, the water, that definitely helps. It helps. Any agitation is going to speed up the process a little bit, but it's not going to speed up the esterification process. Temperature and time really is what does that. Um, but yeah, the hybrid barrels, well, they work great, but they're designed to work, this about the same time as a barrel would. So you still have that time. Ran the American blend from Phil Winter, and that's good. It's great. It's a good blend. I'm pretty sure that's what. Hope I'm not giving up any of his secrets, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's got in there. That works as well. I mean, just a little bit like that, moving it around. I think opening up that thing and getting a shot or two out, and then maybe pour a little fresh, and that's what I tend to do. Yeah, it well, with staves you can do that, but with the barrels and stuff, these barrels are designed to do about as long. The surface area equivalency to a barrel is 2 to 3 years, and then you get pretty decent. 4 is really good, but who wants to wait 4 years? I got 15 a 15 gallon barrel, and that's a good 1 to 2 year barrel. Some of these small, like 2 gallon barrels or 5 gallon barrels, or 8 liter. I guess that's almost two. 12 liter, 2.5 gallon barrels that are all wood. Those go quicker. So if you can get one of those barrels, it's just months. And those for somebody small scale and just wanting to do a gallon or a couple, those are perfect. Those are great for that. Pretty sure Phil has those. If not, they can find them. But those do really well, for short term. But you're still not getting the esterification, and that's really the esterification is basically when you have an acid and alcohol, and the heat that you distilling it catalyzes and creates esters, and these esters over time create a lot of flavors that are unique and good. You get some caramels, you'll get some florals. There's lots of different esters, but a lot of these are just organic acids in that are part of the fermentation process. And let's see, let me find here real quick. Organic. We'll make sure I get them all. Okay, so you have, scroll down here. Okay, like acetic acid, that's the vinegar. That's the acid that's in like a vinegar. So that's one that forms during fermentation naturally, that you want to minimize as much as you can. Lactic acid, we've talked about. That's actually part of the lactobacillus. And when you have a lactobacillus bacteria on some of the fruit, or infecting some of your fermentation vessels, because once you get a lacto, it's in that vessel, it's on that wooden spoon, it's on everything that you use. Unless you clean it and sterilize it, it's gonna be there, and it can come back, and it forms a lactic acid. So especially like a lactobacillus acidophilus, and so it's great to have later in fermentation, but you don't want it early on because it competes for the sugars with your yeast, and you'll have a low proof fermentation. It might be real smooth, and it might have a unique flavor, but you won't get much volume. And then you got formic acid, succinic acid, propionic acid. There's a bunch more um, acids that you get, and citric acid is another one. So all these acids mixed with alcohol and high temperature creates esters that create unique flavors. And a lot of times, depending on what you ferment and how you ferment it, you can actually increase the amount of these acids and stuff, and create more unique flavors. But that's pretty high level. That's pretty much beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But a butyric acid, that's another one. That's the one that smells like vomit that we don't want. But it's all just part of the natural fermentation process, and you'll run into those. And sometimes they just come out of nowhere, man. I mean, you'll run the same mash, it'll be the same thing you did 100 times before, and all of a sudden this one smells like vomit for some reason, man. It's like, and it's just for some reason the butyric acid, creation is all of a sudden much greater. I don't know why. I'm sure there's a scientific explanation I haven't really researched, but um, sometimes you'll get that when it smells like vomit like that. You just kind of got to wait it out. You just kind of wait until that smell goes away. You really don't want to ferment during the time that it has that odor. Again, patience, is the virtue that you really have to have if you're going to be in the hobby. You got to have patience and time, and it's really hard to rush. And I think a lot of places make mistakes, and that might be the reason that $250 million complex is up for sale, is because they had a lot of dreams, but they didn't plan and have the knowledge going into it, and the patience and time to get where they needed to be. I think they used a lot of MGP and that early on, which is kind of important. But you really, when you set up a distilling business like that, you have to plan on going 4 or 5 years without making any money to speak of. So unless you can do that, which these guys didn't, and then you gotta, one of the largest distilleries in the state that's gonna probably go up on the auction block. Anybody want to loan me 250 million? And let's go in partners. Yeah, crawl spaces are perfect, man. As long as you don't get little critters in there picking at your bung, pull the bung out, getting in the alcohol. Yeah, yeah. If you got a tall crawl, I see some houses with some pretty tall crawl spaces, man. If you got a tall crawl, yeah, it's a great place to ferment and age. Just put your little dehumidifier down there, and I've seen some crawl spaces that were almost basements. I mean, you can walk around in them. It's a cellar basically. So let's get back to the esterification of organics in distilling. Esterification is the reaction of carboxylic acid in an alcohol to form an ester and water. They, they can occur during distillation. The heat of the distillation speeds up the reaction. That's the catalyst. And how it speeds up, that's the catalyst I was speaking of. And esters are created as the vapors leave the still and begin to condense. This process can be further accelerated by adding an acid catalyst and using an excess of alcohol. That's a little different process, that they're actually adding um, a sulfuric acid, and they're using the alcohol for other reasons other than drinking. So Yeah, you don't want to do that. But there's a lot of ways to during distillation, particularly in the production of spirits like whiskey, the fermented liquid wash contains both alcohols and organic acids. So those organic acids we spoke of earlier. They're actually created during the fermentation process, and it's because you have an organic material, that like a grain or a fruit or whatever that you're fermenting. That's an organic material, and that when it's fermenting, it's actually decomposing, it's breaking down, and as it does that, these acids are formed and during the fermentation process, and you have those acids mixed with your alcohol, and when you boil it, the temperature is the catalyst, and the higher alcohol content is also a catalyst, but that creates these esters, and these esters can contain many different flavors and flavonoids, and give a lot of the uniqueness. And as I was talking about earlier, you know, that barrel adds 60 to 80%, but the esters and stuff that you can create in the distillation of your spirit and can give your spirit a unique flavor. That's why all whiskeys don't taste the same, and it depends on um, how much and what type are created gives you the different flavor notes that you're going to get in that whiskey. And aging it over time allows the esterification process to mature and to take place, and along with the barrel, um, because this is if you notice, it does the same thing in a jar. If you jar it up and you taste it now, it tastes a certain way, and you can leave it in that freaking jar and pull it out 6 months later, and it's like, damn, man, this tastes better. That some reason this tastes different now. What? It's because these reactions are taking place. They're constantly taking place over a longer period of time, and there's always, it doesn't just stay the same. There's changes in the chemical makeup and the compounds in there that are changing over time that make it more mellow, and increase some of these esters and flavors from these esters. And pretty interesting, pretty interesting stuff. But it's definitely a good read if you want to Google it and learn little bit more about it. There's some really good sources of information out there, and some really shitty ones. Um, as always, I tend to uh, prefer the American Distilling Institute and their forums. Great source of information, and a trusted source of information. Reddit, not so much. Don't go to Reddit. You might as well just, you know, you might as well just ask Billy Bob your neighbor, that's never done anything, and they could probably give you about as good answers in some of these places. Home distillers hit and miss, but you either want to go to Distiller, American Distillers Institute, or come talk to us on Wednesday and Saturday. Jump on the militia. There's a lot of people in the militia that are very knowledgeable, um, and in some of the other groups as well. Got some knowledgeable people and some commercial distillers in there. That have some knowledge as well. Hit and miss with all. I've met some commercial distillers that were extremely knowledgeable, like Alan Bishop. I don't. There's other than maybe the guys at Firm Solutions. Aside from those, I don't know anybody that knows more than Alan. He's very, very knowledgeable. I've got a fairly good knowledge of things, but I've seen some craft distillers decided to go into business, and they don't have as much knowledge, but they make a very damn good product, and that's all they need to do, to go into business and to maintain a business and be successful in that business. So, it's one of the beauties about this is you don't have to have all the scientific knowledge and background to make a good liquor. I mean, you can simply follow some instructions. You can follow a recipe. You can get it down pat, and you can make some of the best liquor ever. And you don't need to know all this stuff. I like to know it. And I like to have a knowledge of what's going on and why. That's why I took shit apart when I was a kid, just to see what made it tick. And that's why we're all here to learn and learn a little bit about the science and the practicality and also just the backwoods stuff, and that's why I urge everybody, when you get a hydrometer, use your finger and taste that shit, instead of, triple scaling it, taste it at the same time you do that. Try to guess it, try to guess. Oh, I think I'm tasting pretty dry. I guess it's 1.1 now, or 0.999 or somewhere in there. And then you put your hydrometer in there and just see, see how close you are. And the same with proofing, shake that jar up, and you gotta, so just kind of shake that jar and start, doing your count, look at your bridging, look for your frog eyes. There's a lot of ways to judge it. That right there is about 130, 40 proof, I reckon. That's about 130. Yeah, that's about 120 to 30 for sure. 130, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's about 130 proof. So you learn from shaking. I'm pretty damn accurate. I can, until it gets low. When it gets like 80 proof, and 70 proof, 60 proof, and you get a lot more water in there, it's a little tougher to shake and guess. But when it's higher proof like that, I can usually guess it within 5 and do that. Check that, and then use your proofing hydrometer and just see how close you can get. And that way you can, when you break them, which you will, you can, always depend on the backwoods methods as well. And, back during the Depression and when, when they, made alcohol illegal during the Prohibition, a lot of distillers continue their craft. That's what they knew. It's all they knew. So they became moonshiners, and they started going into the mountains and they started meeting other shiners and they started sharing their knowledge of science. And in exchange, they learned because they didn't, have a lot of their tools and stuff in the woods. And a lot of the backwoods shiners, taught them, ways to do it without those tools. You can put your hand on that cap and you can feel the temperature. So you don't need a thermometer, at nice, but you don't need it. The only time I use a thermometer is when I'm trying to measure the temperature of my condenser, water, and I try to keep that at a constant. But, other than that, just, you can feel, you can tell, if it's a lot warmer than your body, it's a lot warmer than 98.1, and you can feel where the heat is and where it's, falling on the lint arm and all the way into your thumper and to your, to your condenser. So you really don't need thermometers. You don't need all that, but having a knowledge of both is great. It's fundamental. But there's a lot of old time shiners that resist the science. Don't need all that. They're right. You don't have to have it. And they can make some of the best corn liquor ever. But then you ask them, what's your tequila taste like? They're like, never made tequila. Well, what's your vodka? No, I've never made. What's your rum like? I've never made rum. Well, how about your brandy? No, I just make corn liquor. And that's all they've ever done. They make the best damn corn liquor ever, and that's all they need to do. And you know, who can knock that? It's crazy. I mean, those dudes can make some of the best corn liquor, and I was the same with my thin mash. I know how to do anything else, and if you don't have that desire to expand and learn, there's nothing wrong with that. You can just use the same recipe your family's handed down, the same methodology that you've always learned to use, and don't change a thing. And you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you'll get that replication of a good product for perpetuity. It'll continue to be good. But a lot of times those old shiners are the hardest, not to introduce a lot of science and ideas to. They're kind of resistant to it because they don't want to learn. That's that old dog that don't want to learn a new trick, and he doesn't need to. So, all right, Kimbo. I'm sorry, brother. I missed that. I was reading on the esterification of organic acids page, but no, I'm not the Uncle Jesse. I'm Uncle Joe. Yeah, Uncle Joe's sweet. Sorry, man. But no, I'm not Uncle Jesse. I think he was in the Dukes, wasn't he, Uncle Jesse? But yeah. Yeah, it's I love a sour mash. It's a very economical thing. It's definitely a very economical way. I think Kimbo's still hung over from last night. He's drinking that vodka pretty hard. He was on the shit show last night. We were all pretty hammered. I was getting pretty good buzz last night too. And then I went and had me some Taco Bell and went to bed. And oh, I didn't feel so good about 4 this morning. Spit up a little. I didn't puke, but I kind of got a little spicy burp that didn't settle just right. So I'm gonna have to cut back on them late night tacos. What do you think? But I just want to get everybody before you take off on me. Hit that like button. Get on that YouTube. Hit subscribe. That way you'll get a notification every time we go online, and you'll be able to jump in there with us. And yeah, yeah, Richard was in there with us for a while, but we go backstage after the show, and we get lit. We get we get stupid backstage. It's a lot of fun. We say a lot of things back there that we can't say on Facebook and really shouldn't be said on a stream, you know. But it's a lot of fun, you know. But there's certain things that we can't say on YouTube and on Facebook, and there's certain things that you shouldn't. We start talking about politics and everything else in there, and you never know what's going to be brought up. But a lot of that stuff is probably best not on a regular stream, because not everybody agrees with that shit. So I try to leave politics and religion and all that stuff out of my podcast, and maybe another show, or if you want to get in a group and discuss it, I'd love to, but I try not to mix it with my podcast, because everybody believes differently, and I don't want to offend anyone, and I don't want to lose a viewer just because of politics. And it seems like these days, it polarizes people than it should in the past. In the past, who'd you vote for? So and so. Wow, okay, well, I vote for this guy. And that'd be it. Nobody would care. These days it's, you did, I hate you. I'll never talk to you again. I'm unfriending you. And it gets extreme, just because of an opinion like that. So I try to leave all that shit out of here. What's going on, Brian? Are you just getting here? Well, I'm glad you got here, brother. Yeah, yeah, it does. And if you've been doing it 14 years, tell me how much it's changed in 14 years. Because I know 14 years ago, that was quite a few presidents behind. That was what, 2011. Well, that's not that long. I guess you get my age. 11 years seems, yeah, but 14, yeah. But it's changed a lot in 14 years. Used to, people could agree to disagree and argue about something and laugh and go on and drink and have. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, another little sippy sip of that. Correct. Thank you, Jeff. I need to get me some more of my peach from in there. It's good too. I like that peach. It's sweet. Not real peachy, but damn, it's sweet. Yeah. And I attribute a lot of that to the media. And it's definitely a media manipulation. And I'm going to try to, I'm not saying anything on any side of the aisle, but the media is definitely, conditioning people, I guess you could say. Been on the road. Oh, hell. I guess it's time for you to relax and kick back and pop a top on a cold one, or unscrew the lid on a cold one. Yeah, used to, people could, just agree to disagree, laugh about it, and drink and go on with their lives. But Seems like media's got everybody so worked up. You got to either be one way or the other, and there's so much hate in the world. It worries me, and people don't realize it, and it's on both sides. So I try to stay neutral here, and that's one of the reasons we kind of parted ways with the last, and to try to stay focused. I just want to stay focused on you know on the topic and education and learning. I learn every time from you guys that I come in here. You all bring things to me that I don't know about. I'm learning about fruits I never heard of, and a lot of these things. So it's we're all here to learn, and I'm learning too. I'm not just here to teach. I'm learning with you. So. And when we talk about like the ginger beer, and the ginger shine, that Steve's going to be doing, it's something that I want to know how it comes out. I want to know how it turns out. I'd love to try it. It's so prepping. That's something that Cyrus is big into. We were talking about Cyrus earlier. Great guy. I've never met him yet. I'm dying to meet the guy. We're admins in some groups in common. I've seen some of his YouTube stuff. I'm definitely into the off the grid kind of thing, and Hannah Barron and her dad and Cyrus, and I love the. I wish I could, but I'm getting old and I don't have the best of health, so I guess I got to stay in the city, kind of close to the damn hospital. I should have done, all my wild oats when I was younger and in the woods. But when you got a child, you want to get in a good school district, so you buy in a town in a good school district for your child. And I wished I could have had that farm 20 years ago, but I don't have any regrets. I'm glad we got her to good school, and she's very brilliant. So that's I don't have any regrets for that. But I would have loved to have done that off the grid stuff, when I was a little bit younger. But when you get as old as I am, you start slowing down, and just sounds like a lot of damn work. you know, I just soon, yeah, 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 absolutely. But I do love the off the grid stuff, and love reading about it. And Cyrus seems like an awesome guy, very knowledgeable. Um, kind of envy him in ways. I'd like to be off the grid and doing those things and 20 years younger, but I'm not. So, yep, we just deal with the path that we're on. Absolutely. Yeah, Steve, join the. I don't know if are you in the DIY shining stuff, my DIY shining stuff group. If not, look it up on Facebook and join us. Lisa is, if you notice Lisa Day in the group, you'll see her pop in from time to time and say hi. She's generally pretty quiet, but she's very knowledgeable in tinctures and herbal remedies and medicines as well. So maybe we can get y'all together sometime. And I know on ladies' night, it's not just for ladies, but it's a great time to jump in and talk to them on Thursdays on this same channel. Um, on Thursdays, Lisa and them will jump in there, and they'll talk a lot. Yeah, it's called DIY Shine and Stuff. It's a group that me and Eric Ayers started years and years ago, and it's got quite a few people in there. But it's geared towards the DIY kind of thing, and building your own stills, building your own thing, doing your own thing, and any kind of DIY project and shine or anything else. We kind of talk about a little bit about everything. Yeah. Now, Moonshine Militia ain't mine. That's Phil Billy's group. I'm an admin in there and love it. Actually, I kind of sometimes put that group before my own. But the DIY group's great for DIYers, and I love having DIYers in there. And feel free to post all your stuff in there that you want, any DIY project that you got going on, shine or tincture, definitely right down our alley, brother. So join in there and post to your heart's content, because we love content. And that right there is Miss Lisa saying hello. But on Thursday nights, we've got ladies' night, and it's not just for the ladies. You know, it's very informative. They cover a lot of things in there. Some are definitely estrogen related, but they do talk about a lot of stuff like that, especially tinctures and herbal remedies. They've had some guests in there that are very knowledgeable. Um, I can't type it out, because if I do, it sends it all over to hell and half of Georgia. It's just let me see here. It's DIY space shine space and space stuff, STUFF. DIY shine and stuff. But we do a lot of any kind of DIY kind of projects or anything like that. We love all that kind of content there. Steel building, building your own worms, jar rigs, anything, But yeah, go ahead and put in a join. I don't think we have a lot of questions in that group. And it's a pretty large group, so got an 11-gallon stainless with thumper and worm. What's the best way to run it? Well, Tony, I mean, is this a Vever setup you got? Is it like the flat top and the thumper? Is this a Vever setup? Yes, Drummond's, I am. Yeah, yeah. I don't care to share with Phil. Billy's my brother, man. I love the guy, and the militia. I'm just trying to true the militia. Me and Tom, Damon, Phil Billy, we're all linked at the hip. Those are the three amigos, and I'm the redheaded stepchild as number four. But yeah, we're all very tight, man. We love it. Um, so I don't care to share my content. Eventually, I am going to do some more structured how-to videos. It's not going to be like live. It's going to be recorded. And when I do those, I will probably post those on my own YouTube channel. I'll set it up. It'll be, Distilling 101. But yeah, I'm definitely going to do that probably sooner than later, but just finding time right now. I plan on doing it this spring, but right now my basement's flooded. I've got so much shit going on, and I got to clean this basement up, and it's full of furniture and junk. And now I have to try to move everything, pull up parquet wood floor and tile and wet carpet, and then put in some tile. So yeah, I'm gonna be fucking busy as hell, man. That's gonna be my next DIY project. So I'll probably post my progress in the DIY channel. But yeah, I'm gonna be pretty busy. But yeah, I'm gonna start my own DIY or distilling DIY kind of thing on YouTube as well, and post videos there and share the videos to all the groups. I'm not gonna try to sell a book or anything like that. Not interested in in doing any of those kind of sales. We may do a few little merch things, at the festivals and stuff, for people that are interested in some cool T-shirts or hats or something. But as far as trying to do a book, who knows? I may end up putting all these things together and making a video book or something like that of it together. It's going to be kind of like George's, but I'm not going to jump around a lot. I'm going to try to structure everything in chapters. That way, when you have a specific question, a lot of times in the past, people say, they'd have a question in one of the groups, and then they'd say, "Oh, well, just go watch George's videos." So, okay, you go to YouTube, you see George's videos, and you spend the next 2 weeks watching videos just to find the answer to your fucking question, and that's awesome. I love George. He's great for beginners. Um, Maybe not so much, for advanced, but for beginners, it's great. I don't think he can steer you wrong as far as just on the beginning stuff. But it's great for beginners, and he's great for beginners, and he explains things very well with his chalkboards and stuff, and I like that. And so, but when you want to answer to a question, you always don't have 6 weeks to watch 40 videos to get your answer. So a lot of times, I want to do this in such a way that when you have a question, you can cross-reference it and get an answer pretty quickly with just a simple search. So we're gonna set it up that way. Steve, buddy, hook up with me and let me know what's going on. I know Phil Billy definitely be interested, in something like that, probably if he's not already. Um, Phil Billy may be set up for that, Steve. I'm not sure. Have you looked at Phil Billy's page? Can you tell by looking at it if it's set up for that way or not? If not, maybe we can schedule time that you can talk to us. And maybe it's something we don't know. I don't fool around with YouTube a lot. I get on there and watch a lot of videos, and but I haven't set up on there yet. I know we stream to a lot of different platforms. We're to Twitch, Kick, Rumble. I'm pretty sure we've got. Shoot, I can't even think the name of it, man. I'm an old man. What's that? What's the name of that? Lacey, you're supposed to read my mind and answer this. Can't think of the name of it. Right now, it's kind of bound with Facebook. I don't do much on it, obviously. It's why I can't think of the name of it. But not X. It's not X or trying to think the name. It's got like a little tick. It's like a square and then Instagram. That's one. I know. See, Lisa's awesome. Instagram. Yeah. So I think we got an Instagram thing going on, or somebody helping us with that. Damon, if he's on here, he can jump in there and answer. But Damon and I, yeah, yeah, that's X is awesome because you can say and do pretty much whatever the fuck you want to on there, which is the way they all should be, but they're not all that way. So aside from cussing, there's a lot of things that you can't say and do. Um, Paul Taylor, definitely, probably you can't make this stuff up. After talking stuff about George, you're just a hater. No, I love George, but George isn't an advanced distiller. George is great for beginners, but there's some things that George has said that's maybe kind of not necessarily, factual. Sometimes he calls a graduated cylinder a beaker and little things like that aren't technically true, but I never said anything about George. So I love George, watched every one of his videos and I think he's great. So I'm not really sure where you get that. He's great for beginners. So I'm not sure. I'm not hating on George, but George doesn't do videos anymore, and George can't answer your questions anymore because he's not doing the videos. Somebody came in and bought a lot of his stuff, and because of non-disclosure agreements, he can't really talk much or post or do things anymore. So I'm not really sure where you got me hating on George. I'm not a hater. I'm just stating facts. George is great for beginners and not great for advanced. So take that for what you want, what you will. Not hating, just facts, bro. Yeah, definitely. And Steven, are you in the militia? Yeah, I'm more interested in getting out and getting more viewers and bringing more people into the militia than really, making money. But if I can do both at the same time, I mean, I'm not gonna say no to a little pocket change. But hell yeah, I was starting to see where people get me hating because I said George might not be the greatest for advanced distilling, and he's not. George doesn't teach advanced distilling. George teaches basics, and that's what George is great at. And that's what he's there for. And that's what he's awesome at doing. So that's not hate. That's just facts, bro. If you know any advanced distillers, ask them. They'll tell you the same fucking thing. Trying to find. How did I get on there? All right. Absolutely. That's why we're here. We want to make it a safe hobby. We want everybody to be successful at it. I know a lot of times, the learning curve early on can be kind of tough, but once you get past all that, a lot of things can be explained with doing it and somebody kind of explaining things as you're doing it. It's the best way. I made a lot of mistakes because I had nothing. I didn't have the internet. I had a Foxfire book, pressure cooker, and a copper worm, and so yeah, it was a tough learning experience. At the very beginning, I was young. I graduated to a little small copper steel and then to a keg steel and grandstanding for Soros. Yep, I'm here all for Soros. Can't stand the cocksucker, but whatever you think, John. uh, that's funny, John. You know how much I've made doing all these shows for years out there, bro. So I think that puts me in quite Soros money. But everything's got to be political. Some clowns. If you want to talk about distilling and be something serious, then we're happy to oblige, John. But talking about Soros and bringing up politics in a discussion like this, it's no, it's not very wise, bro. Well, my basement is perfect, bro. I've got these little oil fields. I got the little oil field radiator heaters. They're thermostatically controlled and they work great. I just set them next to my barrels, and I can have three 40-gallon barrels right next to each other. I'll put it right in the middle. And yeah, there's definitely groups for that, John. I mean, if you want to hate Soros, I'll be right there with you. But there's another group for that, man. Send me an invite to the Hate Soros group, and I'll jump in there and I'll sing the hate right along with you, man. If you want to hear me hate on somebody, that'd be a damn good start. But not in a distilling group, bro. Just because somebody said something about money, I made not one penny, not 1 cent of the probably 6, 8 years, 6, 7 years that I've been on here doing this stuff and helping and doing. I've never made anything. I've had some friends share some shine with me and let me try theirs out. They've tried mine out. Made a lot of good friends, and that's invaluable. So I guess that's how I've gotten rich. Yep. Yeah, and we're all learning together. And I agree, Miss Lisa. There's lots of places out there, John. I'll jump right in there with you, but I don't get political on this channel for a reason. This is for all parties, all religions. I don't care what you do as long as you like to drink and like to make your own and distill. And I don't care if you like beer, wine, whiskey, gin, whatever. This is where we all get together to learn. So if you're interested in doing your own thing and learning to make it, you look a little bit young, but this is the place to get started, bro. But yeah, I don't grandstand for sore oats at all, bro. Yeah, yeah. It's I understand, bro. Yeah, I mean, if doing this gets a residual of money, and it's not going to be much. I've seen people do this. They get like $20 or $30 checks a month, maybe. Um, so if that's the case, I'll get it and I'll throw it to Phil Billy because he's the one that pays for the StreamYard that we use every month. So anything, if I even made a penny, I'd just give it to Phil Billy because he's the one that pays for the software, and it ain't cheap because we got um, a pretty good level of it. It's not the basic level, so it's like $120 a month. So any way I can help my brother out, help him pay for it, I definitely would. So if I got 25 bucks a month from YouTube, I'd kick it right to him, bro. Awesome. Not made anything from YouTube yet. Yeah, I've not made a penny. YouTube's not the best payer. I mean, there's some others out there that pay more. But I'm not in it for the money. Never was. It's all about the hobby, and like Steve and I were talking about, making it safe. And Richard and I were talking about making it safe for everybody. Making because a lot of people, and if you're not worried, when you get you want to start this as a hobby, you need your head examined. You should be worried. There's a million ways for it to go wrong, and there's certain things that can be done that can kill you. So a little understanding about it and a little knowledge goes a long way. As far as safety wise. Now, as far as you know, going blind from drinking 4 shots, really, you'd have to concentrate those to do that. So even if you don't even make cuts and you have a decent amount, it's going to taste like shit. You're going to have a horrible hangover, but you're not going to blind. You'd have to concentrate your forage before you can do that and get it to how many parts per million that's required to kill you. But yeah, Steve, definitely, man. You're in the militia, right? Yeah, there is a lot of headsy stuff. I go to these festivals every year, and everybody brings me their stuff, and awesome, cool. Yeah, we'll get you in there, brother. And then we can talk. Me and Damon and Phil, we can talk and look and see and make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing on YouTube. And it's good to have somebody that experienced. I know Philby's been on there a long time too, but I don't think he's been there for 20 years. So, um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to maybe sit down and have a discussion with you sometime and talk about it. But going back to it, yeah, if you're not afraid, there's so many things that can go wrong, but we'll give you the fundamental basic knowledge of everything that you need to know to be safe. Um, but keeping a level head while you're running, don't get drunk. You got to stay sober and you got to be alert and you got to watch everything and pay attention to things and make adjustments if it's needed. So it requires attention. Um, but your results, be good, and that's what we want. We don't want people getting frustrated and say, "Oh, fuck this," and this shit sucks. It tastes horrible, and nobody helps me. I'm out of here. They dropped the hobby, and they really never had a chance to start with. So we just want, yeah, and I don't. I drink when I get on here a few shots, and I'll drink a little bit during the week and stuff. I went a long period of time when I didn't drink at all, and didn't smoke at all, and didn't do anything. When I was raising my child, and But, now she's out of the house, daddy plays again, but yeah, you definitely likely to go to jail than go blind. That's for sure, Dustin. That's for sure, brother. I don't drink a whole lot. I do. Well, I guess if somebody's laughing that says, "Yeah, I saw you last night, bro. You're pretty fucked up." I drink more than I used to now, but I still try to keep it in check. I've gotten hammered a few times, but yeah, all these festivals, man. Yeah, it's hard not to get drunk. Everybody's bringing you their jars when you sample it. Tell me what you think about this. The first five, I can give them a pretty decent opinion on what they've got, but after I'm lit, it's hard for me to tell. Yeah, I mean, moonshine is great for a lot of things, but after drinking a few of them, it's hard for me to tell. I can still taste heads though, and so I'll let them know you work on your cuts a little bit, but it's not bad, and or if it's good, I'll let you know. Damn, it's good. And I've seen people that haven't been at it 6, 8 months, a year, and making as good as stuff. People's been doing it for 10. So the only thing you can attribute to that is the education that we give them and the help that we give them. Because I mean, going and their dedication to learning and understanding too. But yeah, I mean, I've seen people at it 1 year. So if you're new, don't get discouraged thinking I'll never turn out anything good or better than some of these guys. I've seen people that in a year turning out some of the best damn product you've ever tasted. And I've seen people at it for 20 fucking years and still can't make a proper cut and drinking heads. So, but yeah, there's absolutely, it kills parasites. It's great for, a lot of things, a lot of these places that make Shine made hand sanitizer. It's great for that. I use my heads to clean my glasses. That you saw me just clean. There's heads on this, and it's great for glass cleaner. It's great for weed killer. It's great for cleaning up metal before you're ready to weld. I use it for that. It's great for a lot of things. It's you can do a lot of shit with heads. It's a good cleaner. Disinfect your countertops. So there's a lot of things you can do with your fours and heads, that other than drink them. Do I think that large distilleries are separating their heads and pour shots? Yeah, Curtis, they've got these big tall stills. They do fractional distillation, and they got really high, hundreds of thousands of dollar column setups where their stills will separate everything based on its volatility. So they can separate fours, heads, hearts, tails all at the same time. And we also know from um, gas chromatography and some other research and experiments that during the whole run of alcohol, you will have four shots, you will have heads, and you will have tails all throughout the whole run. It's just that the concentration of those changes as the run progressive. But used to, we thought all fours came off early, and then the heads came off next, and then next you just had all hearts, and then next you had all tails. And that's the way we used to think it. But actually, there's still fours and heads in your tails, and they actually go all the way through, but just in different concentrations. And these fractional distilling columns can remove each based on its volatility. So the more volatile, lower boiling point alcohols get separated at the top of the column, whereas, and I guess just a little bit below that, you'll get a lot of your headsy, ethyl acetates and stuff, and acetones. And then a little bit below that, you'll get your ethanol, and then below that, you'll get propanol and some of your tails and some of the alcohols that are in the tails and other things. So they can separate it on those big fancy columns that way. But pot still distillation, you have to manually do it. But that's again a more of a complex distillation method. That maybe we'll do a advanced distilling thing. Once I get this under control. But there's a lot more people wanting to learn the basics than want to learn advanced stuff, because really the only people wanting to get that advanced are people that are actually going beyond a craft distillery. They're going into, full size production with, you know, high end equipment and continuous steels and things of that nature. So, you know, let's see. Oh yeah. The thing about adding spent grains to your compost pile is, rinse them with water first and get some of your alcohol out of there, because you got a lot of good bacteria built up in your compost pile, and you don't want to kill it with that alcohol. So kind of rinse it a little bit before you throw it in there, but it composts fine. After you make that sour mash, use it for sour mash. Don't waste it. Yeah, yeah, like cockroaches. Yeah, yeah. Your chickens will eat it. Again, I'd rinse it off because you don't want to get your chickens drunk. Because I've seen some drunk chickens before. But yeah, you can rinse it off and feed it to your chickens, or let it just evaporate off. Let it sit out a while, and it'll evaporate off. With a quick rinse and a little evaporation, and hell yeah, they love it. All animals love it. Deer are a little. It'll take a while because they'll smell the alcohol, and they don't. It'll sit out there a while before they'll eat it. But coons, everything, they go crazy of it. I've seen animals. I don't know if y'all seen the video of the animals eating the fruit tree in Alaska. There's some, I don't know what the fruit tree is, but they're eating this fruit tree, and it's got so much yeast and sugars that it ferments as it's hitting the ground. Almost, it's fermenting, and it rots. And yeah, and all these animals are eating. There's giraffes, and all the animals get along. They're all eating around this tree. They're like, fuck, I'm not gonna kill you, man. I'm just getting drunk, kind of thing. And they're all eating around this tree, and all these elephants and giraffes stumbling around, and monkeys getting crazy on it. It's funny as shit. You gotta see it. It's funny as shit. But yeah, jump into that DIY, and maybe we can talk about setting it up for, feeding you animals with it, all that good stuff. Yeah, I'd like to have some chickens. Of course, it's a little late for that, but man, I could have made bank on selling eggs. I could have had Soros money selling eggs. How much back set do I use in my sour mash? It varies. It depends on how much the pH is. I generally adjust it with the pH with the back set. Um, and I run it all the way down. That's another problem a lot of people don't do with their back set is it's got a lot of alcohol in it, and if you don't run it all the way down, you really don't want to use hardly much at all. Just adjust your pH with it. But if you run it all the way down to where it's next to nothing, you can of course add more. But yeah, alcohol content is big determinant of how much back set you should add, and there's also the acidity levels. So if you got a acidity in your sour mash right now, but around 2.8, I wouldn't add a whole lot of back set. Once you add your water and your sugar and a little bit extra grain, and you check it, and it's 6.2, add some more back set to it to bring it down to 5.2 or so, and you'll be good to go. Awesome. It is getting about that time. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, and blueberries, be coming on soon. So I'm gonna have to get with my blueberry guy and go pick some blueberries soon. I got a place that has a bunch of blueberry bushes, and you can pick for free, but you got to give them half of what you pick. So I think that's pretty fair. It's a winery, and they don't want to pay for labor, so they got you go in and pick it. You get to keep half what you pick. I think it's pretty cool, and they're cool, laid back people too. May have to try some different. If you get a start catalog and find some different varieties that may be a little better in your type of soil, or just use a fertile plug method. Change the soil that's around it. Supplement it and change the soil. If it needs a little more sand or drainage, you can always make some changes to it. Hell yeah, be awesome. It may have been the durian fruit tree. I haven't looked at that. Sounds right though, but it's African fruit tree that they just love, man, and that'd probably be something interesting maybe to ferment. Be something to look into because that shit probably has a decent wild yeast too. That may be a really good source for a new yeast, or well, not new. It's obviously been around forever, but yeah, Stark Brothers is the way to go. So you're too acidic in your soil there, or not enough? Because if you're too acidic, again, those crushed oyster shells, that's where they come in very handy in balancing soil and adding calcium. For sure, I didn't know blueberries needed to be an acidic. Yeah. Um, Also, I think pine needles, in making like a mulch with pine needles to keep plants down and keep pine needles around the base. I think, and growing them around pine trees and that that tends to work well because the soil seems to be pretty acidic around pines. Yeah, Stark Brothers is definitely the place to go. It's where my grandpa went, where I go. Yeah, yeah, maybe this needs to decompose and soak in. Yeah, maybe they got too much caffeine and trying to grow too fast. Yeah, my grandpa got a lot of stuff from Stark, and I like that they back, what they sell. He bought some dwarf fruit trees, and some of them didn't produce, like they said they were, and he trimmed them and kept them just right, and they, compensate him for it. He took pictures, sent them to him, and they sure did. But he bought a bunch of stuff off them over the years too. He always kept a garden and bought plants and kept bushes and yeah, he loved his Stark trees. Hell yeah, man. Sounds like you got an awesome place, Steve. Definitely, I wish I was younger and had done all these things when I was younger and got the land that I was talking about earlier, the farm, and planted all these fruit trees like I wanted to do. But at the same time, I'd have done that, spent all this effort and money and time, and then found out all these guys are getting free fruit from these used fruit stands that are secondhand and getting ready to go to the landfill, and they get all these freaking thousands of pounds of fruit for free. They're perfectly fine for fermentation, and to be like, yeah, I spent all this time and money, man, and could have just got it for free from these guys. So it's all how you look at things. Dale Hollow. Yeah, we done some fishing around Dale Hollow Lake now. That's an awesome place to be. If I ever had a jar book, no, but I know a lot of people that have. And with your jar rigs, you don't want to use some cheap ass jar. Get you a good canna jar, a mason, a Kerr, a ball. Somebody of repute and as good. But generally, a lot of times when people have their jars blow up, is from it's great fishing on Deha, is from adding different temperatures to it. So you got like all your vapor and everything going through there, going through your infuser. It's about 200 and some degrees. Your jar's 200 degrees, and you turn on your bypass, you take off your jar and you dump it and you pour in some kind of room temperature infuser and put it back on there, crank it up, and as soon as that liquid hits it, all that cool infusion gets swished around, boom, that jar crack. So you want to keep your infusion juices at a pretty good temperature. It doesn't have to be 200, but you want it 160 plus. So keep it hot. Keep it in a jar on top of your steel if you can set it on the steel, or on top of a thumper if you can set it on there. So it keeps a pretty good warm temperature and it's primed and ready to add hot to it. But generally, that's the time when you change temperatures pretty drastically with your jars. That's when you're going to get a lot of busting jars, or if you have a cheap jar, some bullshit jar that wasn't ever designed for canning. I see a lot of people using like mayonnaise jars or something like that. And those probably aren't really designed for the heat. What was the first steel I ever ran? It was horrible. Um, I had a pressure cooker. I was 12 going on 13. I had a pressure cooker. I was using cornmeal sugar, thin mash, scorched the shit out of it. Didn't know how to make cuts. Tasted horrible, but we loved every minute of it. And I made many mistakes and scorched the hell out of the first few until I learned a little bit more about letting it all settle out and doing clears. And you just learn by your mistakes when you have nobody else to go on. And I made every mistake there is to make. I made every one. And yeah, it was just an old pressure cooker. Unscrewed the old pressure thing, screwed in a adapter, went straight into a little copper coil, and ran it to a worm, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Just an old man blathering on about bullshit. Well, I appreciate that. Desmond Hume, Distiller's Life. Yeah, that's all right. There's always going to be haters out there. I know a hell of a lot more than you, most likely, Desmond. I've been doing this for quite a few years. So nobody, you haven't shown us any of your knowledge. So instead of coming in here and sharing knowledge, you just bring your hate. So just fuck off. I don't care what you think you're listening to, son. I know I'm listening to a dumbass hater. So yeah, he's somebody that's jealous. He's probably somebody I know that's jealous of my success, and he's made him a new little account wanting to come in and hate on me. And but here I am. I have a lot of people following and understanding and learning and turn out successful product. And Desmond, nobody knows anything about you or what you've ever made. So I think you're just a hater, and I pity you. I do. Well, oh, opened a legal distiller. You didn't open a distillery, you opened a legal distiller. Well, why don't you learn the English language before you decide to hate on people, dumbass? And have a DSP. Do you have a DSP? No, I'm not a legal distiller there. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think Desmond does. I think Desmond's a liar. I don't think he has a legal distillery. I don't think he has anything but hate. Because if he did, he would want to come in here and help people instead of just spreading hate. So we just gotta look past him and move along. I'm not gonna kick people. I'm not somebody that censors people. Everybody's got their opinion. They're free to voice their opinions. It's just sad that instead of coming in and maybe pointing out somewhere that I've been wrong, which I haven't been that I know of, instead of pointing out maybe something I said that may be wrong and maybe help me out if I was wrong in anything, which I wasn't, but be helpful, kind of help somebody out. But instead, no, he don't have any knowledge to share, just hate. Yep. I appreciate y'all. A lot of people that are actually distillery owners, master distillers that call me all the time for advice and information. I guess Desmond won't be one of those. Yeah, yeah, it sucks, CB. What are you gonna do, brother? What are you gonna do? People are gonna hate. There's nothing you can do about it, man. You can't steal the hate out of a man's heart. Wish I could. But I'm not gonna ban him unless he gets crazy where he's gonna get us in trouble on YouTube, and then of course I'll have to take care of it. But yeah, yeah, that's the thing about free speech is you have to appreciate free speech when it's something that you don't like, because if not, you're just a censor, and that makes you as bad as all the others. So, when somebody says something I don't like, I'll fight for that man's right. I guess he's a man. I don't know, for his right to voice his disapproval of me and anything I say and do. But again, if he wanted to offer something of substance, he could come in and help out and help answer questions and be a positive person. And he actually may help himself and get some followers and people that respect him. But all he's doing is just running his mouth. So yeah, you're not a master distiller. I don't even think you're a legal distiller. I think you're just a troll hater that made up an account to hate with, and that's sad. I pity people like you, bro. But I'll fight for your right to hate. Everybody should have a little hate platform. So maybe you can go back to your little miserable distiller life YouTube page that has 2 followers, you and your grandma, and uh, and talk about how bad Santa is. Nothing to offer but hate. It's a shame. It is pitiful, and I feel sorry for people like that. I really do. No, he ain't gone. People like that never go away. They just fester like a sore filled with pus. They're an infection. That's what they are. You got to look at them as an infection, a cancer to our society, just a hater who contributes nothing. But, I do go to a lot of festivals. If you'd like to maybe come talk to me in person about that, we can do that too. Then I'll censor you. Yep. Yep. I appreciate your comment, Desmond. That's right, Steve O. That's right. Appreciate your comments, brother. You just keep on hating on, man. Just another click. Hit that hate button. Hit that big frowny face for me one time or 10 times, man. Just show me how much you hate me. Uh, but after that, after I did the pressure cooker thing, I went to a little small copper pot. It was really small. And well, whatever happened to that thing? I think it got stolen or something. Then I went to a keg still. I was in college. I had a keg still and ran the keg still for a long time. And then I got a couple of 80 gallons and an 18-gallon, just a little shy, just a little under 20 gallon, 18-gallon. And I'm going to build another copper steel. We'll probably do a 20 or 30. Probably build a 30-gallon. I don't know, maybe 30 or 40, somewhere in that range. I got some 40-gallon barrels that I ferment in, so I may build a 40. That way I can squeeze 30 in it. What do you think? What do y'all think? I think that's the case too. I'm having pretty good success, at podcasting and helping and the Q&A thing, and getting pretty popular on the Facebook and the groups, and getting more and more on YouTube. And I enjoy it, which I attribute my success to my enjoyment and love for it, and how much I enjoy helping people. And I may not have a distilling plant, but I've got a still. I may not have a license to distill and the permits and all those things, but I don't really need those to have the knowledge. And I've seen a lot of people like the troll, but I agree, he's probably just somebody that's jealous of my success and wanting to try to bring me down. But actually, you just help me, man. You just make me look better when you bring that stupidity and hate. You just make me look better. So nobody really cares if you have a distilled spirits plant or not. I don't think he does. If he does, he's probably going to be a failure, because if he was a successful distiller, he wouldn't be here trolling me now, would he? I think he'd be busy doing other things, like promoting his product instead of kicking old Santa. Yeah, I'll go over to his page though, and I'll see what he's all about. That'll be interesting. Desmond Hume. Yeah, I remember that. Desmond Hume. So the Steelers life. So he can talk about. I guess he talked about their lifestyles of the distillers instead of actually substance. Yeah, I did. Who's getting fucking coal and switches this year? Is it hidden? Go figure. He ain't no distiller. He's just a hater. That's funny as shit. Yeah, nobody that has a group like that or has any followers is going to be hidden. They'd want to put that shit out there and promote. But the only thing he's promoting is hate, not distilling, not expertise, not knowledge. Oh, well, that gave me a few minutes content to close it out at 11. Always good to end on a note like that, though, huh? Jeez. I've been pretty fortunate, though. We've got Human Hater and what's her name? Elise the Ass Eater. That's been my two biggest trolls in here. Oh, I put them both in about the same place. They both eat shit. Yeah. Yeah, he's probably drank too many heads in his day. Has it pickled his brain? What little he had. But let's not spend our time hating on him. Let's think about what we're going to talk about Wednesday. Well, I'm gonna look in a minute, Lisa. I'm not surprised. You know, people like that really don't bring much to anything but just hate and sorrow. I feel sorry for him, but I guess that's his only way to get some people to come to his page is to troll somebody else's and get a few to say, "Well, let's see what this idiot's all about." So he got his 5 hits for the month. Oh, that's funny shit. But let's see, what are we going to talk about Wednesday, folks? We have to come up with something, maybe steel building, because that's what I'm getting ready to do. Maybe I did promise to bring some patterns out, so I let's do that Wednesday. We'll talk about steel building and I'll find all my patterns. I've got like 1,000 different files to go through. Flavoring and thumpers and infusers and building infusers and thumpers. Yeah, we'll talk about all that, and I'll bring out. I've got some plans and some um, not stints, but it's what do you call them? I guess it's patterns. The word I'm looking for building steels. So um, I guess you can scale them up and down to however what size you want to build, and we'll look at the math, and we'll probably go over the math and how to determine the volume of the cylinder or something like that. So it should be fun. Yeah, actually, I've seen some recent videos of stuff on kudzu CB. It's the damn roots for kudzu is huge, and it's just like a potato, man. It's got a lot of starch in it. They're awesome, you know. Who'd have thought? All that mountainside of kudzu, man. Shit, chop that shit down, get the root, and yeah, actually it is. It's good. They're actually growing it intentionally in a lot of places in Japan and places. I guess Asia where it came from originally for a ground cover, but I guess we could ask Mr. Hume about that. Maybe he could tell us all about that. But yeah, they brought it in as a ground cover, and it just went crazy. You know, it's an invasive plant, but um, got most of it out. But yeah, if you just told a bunch of moonshiners that root makes some good shine, there wouldn't be any kudzu left in the South. You know, that'd be the best thing to do. To say, yeah, did you know that root makes some good shine and shit. Next thing you know, that whole mountainside be gone. So yeah, we'll talk about all that next week. I'm glad y'all tuned in. Love y'all. Have a good time. And hit that like button, share it with a friend, bring some of your buddies in here and share the hobby. And I will catch you guys and gals on Wednesday, 8 o'clock, same bat channel. Shine on, everybody. Take care.